All right, Kiana, let me know when you are ready.
I'm ready. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Thank you so
Kiana,
much.
let me know when you are ready. I'm ready. Can you see the screen?
Yes, I
Yes.
can
Okay,
see the screen.
I'm ready. All right, thank you so much.
Kiana, let me know when you are ready.
I'm ready. Can you see?
I was getting feedback. Sorry. All right. Yes, we are ready. So we can skip this slide. I mentioned who I am already. Um, we do lots of stuff within the community. But because we have such a short time here, I want to get to the crux of what environmental justice is. So go to the next slide, Kiana, and I think that one's a video. So when this is playing, I just want to let everyone know. So environmental justice ensures that all people, regardless of race, income, background, gender, have equal access to clean, healthy environment. The term environmental justice was coined in the 1980s by a grassroots movement led by Black people, and particularly Black and Indigenous people in what was then called marginalized communities. In 2025, we want to move away from the term of marginalized communities just because it has such a negative connotation to it. And while environmental justice, we do want you to think about the injustices within a community, we prefer to say underrepresented frontline communities or fence line communities because they give uh, a better connotation of how those communities are being affected and impacted by environmental justice. And lastly, um, I wanted to make sure you make sure I point out and understand that environmental justice is tied strictly to civil rights, public health, and climate change. So we'll watch this quick video. It's less than 2 minutes, and then we'll move on through the presentation. So we'll watch this quick video. Kiana, I don't think we hear sound. Remember, when you're sharing if you close out, when you go back in to share your screen, you have to make sure you have selected the little box that says that you're going to be sharing computer audio as well.
Okay, let me stop and go back in. Sorry about that, y'all.
Environmental justice movement started primarily in the southeastern states, expanding from the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Local residents began sounding the alarm about public health dangers in their communities. One important example took place in 1982 when residents of Warren County, North Carolina protested the construction of a toxic PCB landfill in a majority African American community. They told officials that the landfill would make their water unsafe to use. Other environmental injustices have been institutional. During the era of segregation prior to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, many state and local governments worked to restrict people of color to living in certain neighborhoods. Mortgage lenders, neighborhood associations, and municipalities used various racist policies to limit where people of color were allowed to live or buy property. This system, called redlining, also reduced the political power of these neighborhoods, which prevented those communities from accessing environmental services like trash pickup and sewage systems. Such forced segregation is illegal now, but these communities are still suffering from the environmental disparities that were put in place. Today, there are new inequities being created. For instance, physical infrastructure like landfills, highways, and wastewater plants that cause noise and air pollution are more likely to be built in communities of color. But these same communities do not have easy access to public amenities like greenways and parks that provide social and mental health benefits. In the coming years, climate change will only increase the disparities caused by environmental injustice. Climate change will damage crops through droughts and floods, cause heat-related illness, and increase heating and cooling bills. Communities with lower incomes and higher minority populations will bear a disproportionate share of these costs. Leaders should help their communities strive for the EPA's goal of equal protection for all from environmental and health hazards, and equal say in the decisions that create a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work.
Thank you for that, Kiana. So that is environmental justice in a nutshell. When we look at environmental justice, we cannot forget about climate change. So one of the things that I wanted to do with you guys today is just make a little distinction, right? So environmental justice is based on, we talked about this, the principles that everyone has the right to a clean, healthy environment. And it aims to address disparities within certain communities that have resulted from a lot of systemic oppression, which is what we heard about in the video. And the EPA actually, I have a EPA definition. The EPA actually defines environmental justice as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. So keep regulations and policies in your mind because we're going to talk about that a little bit about that today. So the goal of environmental justice, we like to say, will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental harms and environmental hazards. Climate justice, however, is but a subset of environmental justice. And they both aim, while they both aim to address disproportionate impact of climate change and environmental harms, climate justice focuses specifically on the unequal impacts of climate change to vulnerable communities. So when you think about that, you think about some of our neighborhoods that experience flooding, and it's very difficult to bounce back from those types of natural disasters. So that's how climate change is a little different. I'm sorry, climate justice is a little different because it hones in on that climate change specifically. Next slide. I also want to make sure that we understand the difference between environmentalism and environmental justice, right? So traditional environmentalism has long focused on conservation efforts, pollution control, protecting nature from the impacts of humans. However, environmental justice shifts the focus to people, a more people-centered approach, and it asks critical questions that we always like to keep in the forefront of our mind. Who specifically suffers the most from whatever the pollution is, or however climate change is affecting that community? So, for example, while climate change is a global issue, environmental justice highlights often highlights underrepresented communities because they face often the worst impacts first. And then they're generally the last to receive help to help build their communities back up. So, with the people centered approach focusing on environmental justice, that's really what sets environmental justice apart from traditional environmentalism. Now, really quickly, I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I did mention we have a lot to get through today, but I do want to share some real world examples with you because I think all of us are aware of some of these. So, if you look at Louisiana, there's Cancer Alley, and in Louisiana, there's over 150 refineries and chemical plants that are concentrated in one small area. That is in a predominantly Black neighborhood. And what happened when when those refineries were there? It resulted in a very disproportionate exposure to toxic pollutants. And the majority of the people that lived within those communities contracted some form of cancer, which is why they nicknamed it, unfortunately, Cancer Alley. But there are other examples that we've known about recent, like in the news. I think all of us have heard about the Flint water crisis and the failure of the government there to provide oversight, which led to lead contamination in the water. Again, predominantly Black city. It caused lots of public health concerns there. Uh, Hurricane Katrina, all the way back to 2005. Um, think about what happened to that community specifically. This is 2025, 20 years later. Um, and there were so many people displaced by Hurricane Katrina. They weren't able to go back to their homes. They lost their land. They weren't able to afford uh, to build back. So some families lost land and property that may have been in their families for generations. And then we also want to take a look at food apartheid, right? Which is a systemic issue, which means that many Black and Brown communities lack access to affordable, healthy, culturally relevant food, right? So, with a lot of these examples, some of these examples underscore how environmental justice isn't just theoretical, but we want to make sure that we're telling the stories of our communities because we want our legislators to see the harms and the impacts that they are causing on us. Before we move on, I do want to ask some of you guys, though, um, can you think of any environmental justices in your area or near where you live? Um, like I said, I'm in Prince George's County, and I can think of a few that some people may not know of. I'm going to ask uh, a couple of people, just if one person, I'll take the first person, if you can come off mute and let me know of an environmental justice that maybe you've thought that you can think of.
Yes, yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
This is Mr. Sor. I work as a Spanish teacher at Central High School. One of the environmental injustices in Prince George's County could be the water containing lead.
Mm-hmm.
The lead concentration in the water, which could cause irreversible brain damage, and it could also cause different types of cancer as well. It is time for the county to have drinking water for all because this is something that water is not a privilege. It's a right and it's a basic life necessity. Um, so that's one of the environmental injustices that I find. Also, I could think of others, but that's probably the immediate one. And also the water restrictions that they have or that they impose from time to time about boiling water and so forth.
Yes, thank you so much. That is a fantastic example.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it is time for our legislators, especially within the county, um, to take this seriously and come up with some different legislation for us. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I will give you guys just a few more examples before we move on, because these are um, also examples that are happening today in the county. Um, and we have an opportunity to stop them, right? So we think about um, how many of us use Chat GPT or Gemini or some form of AI, right? So we think about AI, and we have to make sure we have a good balance with the technology that we're using. And the reason I brought that up is because there was legislation in Prince George's County earlier during this year, actually, to try and push forward data centers, right? And if any of you know anything about data centers, I will tell you really quickly that data centers cause lots of air pollution, which contributes to respiratory illnesses. They use lots and lots of water, um, and they are extremely loud. They also cause noise pollution. Now, I say all that to say we actually need data centers, right? But before we just jump right into it, we have to do some research and find a great balance for how we can benefit from data centers as a community and where we're putting those data centers. And I'll tell you, the legislation that was stopped earlier this year was specifically because we had environmental justice groups here in the county, uh, and along with Sierra Club, there's the South County Environmental Justice Coalition, and then there's the NAACP, Environmental and Climate Justice Team. So a lot of groups from all over really just got together. Even some of our friends and neighbors in Virginia came to speak at some of our hearings here in Prince George's County to warn our county council um, against the harms of data centers being so close to where people live. So again, I say that we need data centers, but we have to be strategic about where we place them, right? And then we also have to be strategic about how we allow data centers to come into our communities, specifically because in other communities, the citizens are often the ones that end up paying for the data centers to be there. And they do that because a lot of the legislators allow large numbers of tax breaks for the data centers to come. So essentially, it turns out like residents are paying these organizations to put data centers in their community. So they're basically paying to harm themselves. And those are some of the things that we want to avoid. So one of the provisions that we are trying to get into the legislation, because it's going to come back up, is that we want to make sure that data centers are being built to a decent and sustainable standard. I won't spend a whole lot more time on data centers, so I just wanted to give everybody that example, but we'll move on from there. So we want to talk about some of the core principles of environmental justice. We talked about fair treatment, right? No community should bear disproportionate burdens. We talked about having meaningful involvement. We want to make sure that impacted communities also have a voice and a seat at the decision-making table. And we want to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. So that looks at like having intergenerational conversations, right? No one's voice is more powerful than the next. Everyone's voice is powerful. We want to make sure that we are being responsible and protecting our resources for future generations. And then we want to make sure we're looking at things from a holistic approach. We want to look at the intersection of environmentalism, health, policies, social justice, and so forth. So these principles that you're looking at here, they're called the 17 Principles of Environmental Justice, and they were created by community leaders in 1991 at the People of Color's Environmental Leadership Summit. And they have since been serving as what we like to call a guiding framework for ensuring that all communities have the right to a healthy, safe, and sustainable environment. And the reason we use this as a framework is because it really is inclusive. And while we talk about environmental justice in many areas, we want to make sure, if you look at grassroots organizations and staunch EJ professionals, you will see that they always refer back to this particular document because we don't want to forget anyone within our communities. We want everyone to come along. So next slide, Kiana. Thank you. So I mentioned that we are going to speak a little bit about, I think that's the wrong slide. Yep, there we go. Thank you. I mentioned that we were going to talk a little bit about policy and regulation. And the reason I wasn't going to talk about that before, but given the current political climate and things that have been happening in this new presidential administration, I thought it very prudent to mention some of these important things, right? So, policy and advocacy are very critical in advancing environmental justice. So, we already know that based on what's happening in the current administration, um, with the president um, pretty much banning DEI initiatives and attempting to revoke previous executive orders that that highlight environmental justice and legislation, it is going to be more important for us now more than ever to make sure that as advocates, we are advocating and speaking with our elected officials on a local level, on the county level, and on the state level, right? So we're gonna have to get into the point, into the habit of managing up so that we can get what we need for our communities. So one key milestone for environmental justice was what was called Executive Order 12898, and it was issued in 1994 by President Bill Clinton. And that executive order acknowledged the importance of addressing environmental justice issues within federal policies, right? And then if you move forward all the way to Joe Biden's administration, he implemented executive orders as well and created, what do we have? The Justice 40 movement. I'm sorry, not movement, but Justice 40 legislation, which aimed to direct 40% of federal environmental benefits to communities that have been identified as environmental justice communities. So while that will probably no longer happen under the Trump administration, the good thing is a lot of the money for some of the initiatives under Justice 40 have already been dispersed to lots of states and lots of different organizations for them to utilize. One of the things that EJ professionals are speaking about this week, actually, is we're trying to figure out how to effectively deal with some of that funding that's sitting in red states, because what we have seen is that some of the red states will probably just sit on that funding, even though it's intended to go to vulnerable communities, which I think is just, pure evil. But what can we do? What we can do is advocate more and push on a local level and a county level and a state level. So in addition to government action, we want to look at grassroots movements. There's organizations like We Act for Environmental Justice, Indigenous Water Protectors, and there are lots of organizations. So if you are looking to get involved, now is the time to do so. So I mentioned some things about environmental justice today. I won't repeat what I said, but I will say this. The next 4 years are going to be pretty tough. So I encourage everyone that when you are going to the ballot boxes, make sure you're not just voting for um, folks that affect your bottom line, but you want to make sure you're voting for folks that are also putting the environment and environmental justice matters specifically at the forefront. And I'll tell you why. Because at the root of environmental justice is environmental racism. And racism is very expensive, right? So if you think about how we manage racism in this country, it costs lots and lots of money. You heard in the video in the beginning of my chat that um, a lot of Black and brown neighborhoods are still having problems today from what was called redlining, right? How much money has that cost Black and brown Americans um, to live in those communities? But it continues to cost more money because the states, the government are now responsible for helping to clean up those communities. So it's money that we're wasting that could be avoided if we just try to do the right thing, right? Um, so we also want to look at in terms of, oh, next slide, please, Kiana. We also want to look at today. We heard a lot about equality and equity and justice within some of the definitions, right? Well, in 2025, we want to look at agency. And agency specifically refers to giving people back their power. So if you look at these four pictures you see here, some of you may have seen these before, but that equality box, everybody is given the same resources, right? But they're not given what they need. In the equity box, people are given what they need to be able to see over the barrier, right? In that justice photo, they changed the barrier to make it a little better. But we want to look at agency because agency removes the barriers and removes the access so that no one has to think about how they're going to manage participating in their community. So just think about some of those things. And with that, I'm going to ask you to think about a call to action and some of the things that you can do in your community because we all play a role. So you can start learning more about local EJ issues. You could attend town halls. You could read local reports. You can write letters to the editor. I know we have some students on here. Yes, students, you too can write letters to your editors in responses to things and share about the things in your communities that are harming you and how you want to see them change. You can support and volunteer at different organizations. And most importantly, I'm going to say it again, and I've said it a lot, advocate for change, advocate on the different policy levels, consider sustainable choices, and make the best choices that you can within your communities with whatever resources that you have. And if you see a need for something in your community, don't be afraid to speak up and ask for those things. So I'm just going to say, as we wrap up, I want you to remember that environmental justice is about people. It's about power. It's about empowering yourself. And it's about policy. So we must make sure that we center everyone's voices, especially the voices of people who are most impacted by environmental harms. So, whether you're an activist, an advocate, or an educator or a student, um, we all have a role to play. So, I encourage everyone to do some more research on environmental justice issues in your community, spearhead some initiatives to maybe have, you know, town hall discussions. And that's what I have for you guys today. I know it was a little long. I do apologize for going over a little bit. Actually, I went over a lot and I apologize for that. But I wanted to make sure I gave you uh, a thorough crash course in environmental justice. So we're going to ask to hold our questions until we come back for the Q&A portion of the workshop. And I am going to um, now I am going to introduce uh, Antonio again. And Antonio is going to introduce our next speaker.
Yep, thanks, Nicole.
You're welcome. And while he's doing that, I am going to put up a poll for us, a really quick poll. So if you could take a just 30 seconds to answer the poll, that would be great.
And while y'all are doing that poll, and I want to emphasize what Nicole said at the end of her presentation, that it's about people, power, and policy. So for our next topic, we're going to have Larry Davis. He's a CEO of Green Mechanics. He's going to talk about environmental justice in the town of Eagle Harbor. Larry has taken his background and skills in ecosystem restoration and environmental stewardship from the DMV around the world to a bunch of different countries and continents, places such as the Philippines and Brazil. And he's also a mentor through an organization called Roots Africa. So once we go ahead and finish up that poll, we'll get started with Larry.
Thank you. And I'm going to close the poll up right now. And over to you, Larry.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Just want to take a couple of minutes just to share a little bit about an interesting town in Prince George's County. I don't know if I have ability to share my screen or not, to maybe share some visuals, but I can kind of share some narrative as we go along. So for the last couple of years with Green Mechanics, company I have the opportunity to lead, and we're based in Prince George's County. We've been engaged with the town of Eagle Harbor, which is the smallest town or municipality in the state of Maryland. Is actually the last African-American predominant waterfront town in the Chesapeake Bay, and is one of its only kinds left within the country. The town is approaching 100 years old in the next couple of years. And when the town was established in 1929, it was a refugee for Black and brown families to get access to waterfront properties, as it was pretty difficult to do it in DC at the time. You fast forward to the 60s, a couple of decades after the town is founded, there's a coal power plant that's installed right next to the town for energy production. And so you can imagine this is prior to EPA, Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, protocols and approaches that were used of disposing different types of waste when dealing with coal combustion and disposing of those waste materials. Up until now, there really hasn't been any baseline monitoring for the impacts of the plant, though it's not burning coal now, it's more so natural gas. but the impacts of the materials, how they were processed, how they were disposed, there really hasn't been any long-term studies to see, or any studies to look at baseline information that the community can make an empowered decision. So, for example, you've got folks in the town that are growing gardens. They have gardens in their backyard and they're growing food. And folks will want to know, hey, how are the soils? It's safe for me to grow my crops and products in the backyard. And the answer is we really don't know. There hasn't been any baseline soil data at that particular level. The town sits right off the Potomac River, and so folks in that town don't have the benefit of having a water utility that provides water to their pipes and kitchens and bathrooms, so they have to rely on groundwater and aquifers. Is it safe for them to pull that water and use it for bathing, watering, or other amenities for their house or homes? Don't really know. We don't have that baseline data. The town sits right on the Patuxent River, and folks want to enjoy, the amenities of the Patuxent, to go fishing and go crabbing and getting oysters and all that fun stuff. Hey, what's the safety level for ingesting some of those things? Don't know. So for us and our partners with different nonprofits such as Ridge to Reef and University of Maryland, Morgan State University, Tuxent River Keeper for that area, we were able to apply for an EPA environmental justice grant, which would be a 3-year endeavor to collect those different baseline measurements for the town, so that there is a chance for the community, because that's of what's the most important is the community to be empowered to make well-informed decisions on their soils and their water and things that are in the river that they want to enjoy those amenities. We want to be able to provide a baseline for the community to then decide what is their highest priority, what is their top interest to address any restorative fashions for their community. And then we want to be of support to them in regards to perhaps developing nature-based technologies for addressing those challenges. So let's say, for example, if folks are growing food, they want to better their soil health. Well, maybe it's designing, certain environmental sensors and data to make that accessible for the town, so we can start to map and monitor soil health progression. Maybe if folks are, growing food, maybe instead of growing it in the soil directly, they can use raised beds with other different types of agricultural technologies to still help them produce the same amount of food and maybe for less space. There's different types of nature-based technologies that could be of support to the town, depending on what their priority is. So with that, I just wanted to give a quick overview of what's going on in a very vibrant and very interesting town right there in our backyards in Prince George's County. And the town is looking to really address these long-term disparities that really haven't been made aware up until now. And so we're hoping to be a support in any way, shape, or fashion that the community wants. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry, for that. That was really insightful. I have to admit, I've never been to Eagle Harbor. Now I want to check it out. And what I think was really important that Larry mentioned that there's a lot of creative solutions from raised beds. There are things that, we don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. We can just apply things that other people are doing and have been doing in addition to some of these new technologies. So before I introduce our next speaker, our next chat, we're going to do another poll. So this poll is going to ask, have you or someone you know observed or experienced food-related injustices in your community? So we should have that poll pop up in a little bit, and you should see it now. And while you all are doing the poll, I want to introduce Dr. Brittany Drakeford, friend of mine who's the director of the Capital Market in Capitol Heights. Brittany is going to talk about food justice and healthy food systems. And one thing that I saw that I really liked is she has come up with a really great acronym called FATE, is FATE, for Faith, Arts, and Technology. So she uses that as kind of a rubric in a way to create more equitable and just communities. She's won a lot of awards for her work, and she really believes in making those connections between government, businesses, community, people from all walks of life. And I know that firsthand. And I'm really looking forward to her presentation. So it seems like a lot of you have answered the poll. We still got a few folks left.
Yeah, we'll give it another 30 seconds, Antonio. Uh, Brittany, do you need to share your screen? I think are already, you should be a co-host. Yeah, you have co-host permission, so you can share.
All righty, thank you.
There's the results of our polls.
So first, Nikki, thank you so much for inviting me. I am a proud graduate of Prince George's County Public Schools. So whenever I have the opportunity to speak to teachers and students and those who are, I would say, influential in shaping who I have come to be today, I'm thankful for that. Also, thank you to my friend Antonio, who has given me my PhD a little early. I am a PhD candidate at the University of Maryland, focusing on food systems and urban planning. And I'm, very appreciative for my friendship with Antonio and his ability to take the ideas that we have at the Capital Market and to be able to truly visualize and conceptualize and communicate visually the work that we're doing, as well as the things that we experience in our community in Prince George's County. So I'm going to get started today, and I'm actually like scrolling through the polls. Nikki, before I get started, how much time do I have to talk so I don't go over?
Well, thanks to Larry. Larry got us back on track. So you have a little bit of time. So you still have like your 12 to 15 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Larry. All right. I'll also be cool. I'll be real. I joke around a lot doing presentations. So please, I was also that student in school. So I'm looking at some of the poll results, right? And so, it seems like everyone has experienced this, this lack of food access or food injustices in Prince George's County. So again, as I mentioned, I will be here talking today. My name is Brittany Drakeford. I will be here speaking today a little bit more about food justice, healthy food systems in Prince George's County. I am a farmer, a beekeeper, an urban planner, a researcher, and as I mentioned, a proud graduate of Prince George's County Public Schools, kindergarten through 12th grade, right? And today in my discussion, I'm going to hopefully hit 4 things, right? I'm going to explain why I'm interested in food justice and how it intersects with my work as an urban planner and futurist. We're going to define a few key terms to help contextualize what food justice is, what food systems are. Then we're going to describe, excuse me, I'm going to describe the effects that we see as a result of food injustices and food insufficient access in our communities. And then finally, I'm going to provide a few ideas of projects or assignments that you all can initiate either in your classrooms or ways that we can think about curriculum in Prince George's County through the lens of the work that we have done at the Capital Market. So one of the most important things for me is that I'm a lifelong Prince George's County resident, right? I'm also the descendant of farmers and land workers who were forcibly required to work the land as enslaved people, but also those who chose to grow food as a way to build community, connection, and hope for the future. I, along with my friends and family, lead the Capital Market, which is a community-led organization that centers food systems and leverages cultural capital to revitalize communities through advocacy, education, and land use development. We use food systems regeneration to vision a world where we all have access to healthy food, affordable housing, and opportunities for community and self-actualization. A place where history is used to guide the present, the future, to sustain an environment that is safe and engaging for each person, no matter their stage of life. Our work is community-led, directly working with and allying with individuals who have been impacted by a disconnected food system. So we started the capital market in direct response to the closing of a grocery store in Addison Plaza along Central Avenue, nearly a decade ago in 2016. That one store was the only grocery store along a 7-mile stretch of road from Benning Road in Washington, D.C. to Largo Center in Prince George's County. One of the foundational things that we recognized at the capital market was that the intersection of different government policies, and we, Antonio just mentioned it, Nikki mentioned it as well. Local, state, and federal level policies that related to housing, trade, transportation, zoning, employment, and even taxes determined how different communities access healthy foods and access foods that were also culturally relevant for them. In response to the closure of that grocery store, we decided to create an organization and get our hands dirty, literally, right? To create food or to bring food from Prince George's County farmers directly into the hands of Prince George's County residents. So before I talk about some of the strategies and some of the work that we do as the capital market, I think it's first important for all of us to have a baseline conversation or just baseline understanding of what some of these key terms are. So food systems is a socio-ecological perspective to understand how food production, for how food, both from production to distribution, moves around in a neighborhood. A food system encompasses a broader perspective, considering not only the supply chain, but also the socioeconomic factors, environmental factors, and health impacts of food production and consumption. The Global Food Security Strategy defines food systems as agriculture and food systems that are intact, the whole unit made up of interrelated components of people, behaviors, relationships, material goods that interact in the production, processing, and use of food, feed, fiber through a variety of different ways. In totality, the food system is the combination of the social, built, financial, human, and natural resources of our community. Anything that makes the food economy operate is part of the food system. So then if we think about what actually are healthy foods, so working with residents along the blue and green lines in Prince George's County, so neighborhoods like Capitol Heights, Suitland, District Heights, Sea Pleasant, the capital market facilitated a number of community workshops to actually develop a community-based definition of healthy foods and healthy food access. And I'll go through some of those next. So we, in conjunction with residents who were experiencing these conditions, defined healthy foods as foods that are nutrient rich, fresh, are locally grown, can be prepared, but are minimally processed. Fruits, vegetables, grains, meats, or other types of items are in their most natural state, but are most importantly beneficial for physical health and cultural resilience. We defined healthy food access as a safe way for people to reach whole foods. And that pun was not intended when we created that definition. And so this includes the ability to navigate and retrieve affordable, nutrient-rich, natural, locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables within a 15 minutes walk or 15 minutes distance from one's house by either walking, biking, using public transportation, or some other alternative non-car mode of transportation. So we really centered the definition of healthy food access as being something that people can access without a car, and they can access relatively quickly. We also looked at the route that an individual takes to navigate the neighborhood and retrieve these resources in a way that is safe, visually appealing, has working infrastructure, safe crosswalk signaling, and all of those components. And then when we define food justice, we look at food justice as a movement to ensure universal access to nutritious, affordable, and culturally appropriate food for all, while advocating for the well-being and safety of those involved in the food production process. Some key components of food justice include emphasizing healthy, sustainable, and equitable food as a human right, acknowledging the need to address structural barriers to that right to food, and also centering community participation and agency in the process as well. So how does food injustice show up in Prince George's County? Historically, Prince George's was one of the largest agricultural counties in the state of Maryland, but we are now facing significant food insecurity challenges. Nearly 1 in 2 Prince Georgians experience food insecurity on a daily basis, making it a key area of concern where nearly 37% of people in the Washington region do not always know where their next meal will come from. Additionally, rising transportation costs, disrupting food supply chains have contributed to a accelerated food increase price. From 2021 to 2022, September and August, there was a 13.5% increase in food prices. And during the year of 2024, we saw approximately a 2.5% increase. This increase basically makes food more expensive and more challenging for people to access due to the increased food prices. Additionally, when we look at children and the impact that this has on kids, we see higher rates of fast food TV advertisement disproportionately targeting Black and Hispanic youth. So using 2019 Nielsen data, a report called Fast Food Facts from the Yukon Rudd Center indicated that there are rising disparities in racial and ethnic targeted advertising that's widening, where Black and Latino children, when they watch television or the television programming that's targeted to them, is specifically programming advertisement that promotes large costs, low cost, large portion meals, and a lack of healthy foods.
Hey, Britt.
Yep.
Hey, real quick. The page I think is a little zoomed in. Can you zoom it out? Because I don't think you can see the entire page.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Is this better?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, my bad. We even see how food access impacts people at an early age. So this is a chart from the National Center of Health Statistics, National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey from 2015 to 2018. And what we see is that this is actually breaking out the mean percentage of calories from fast foods at any given time. Blue bars represent white students or white children. Light green bars represent non-Hispanic or Black children, non-Hispanic Black children, and dark green represents Hispanic children. As noted, across all age ranges, African American Hispanic children have higher percentages of caloric intake from fast food. And basically, this results in, if we look at this from a long-term perspective, it results in shortened life expectancies in our communities. So in Prince George's County alone, we see a 16-year gap in life expectancy from communities like Suitland, which have low access to healthy foods, comparison to communities like Greenbelt that have higher access or higher rates of food access. So what can we do about this? So there are 4 strategies generally that we use at the capital market that looks at connecting with impacted people, using community research to assess community conditions, sharing our findings and prioritizing recommendations with individuals who were impacted, as well as elected officials or other public stakeholders, and then ultimately equipping, which you all do as educators, equipping the impacted individuals to actually implement their own goals and solutions of sustainability, health, economic resilience, and cultural celebration. So some ideas of things that we can see happen either in Prince George's County Public Schools through the lens of what we do at the capital market is first centering places pedagogy, right? We use healthy food walk audits as project-based learning opportunities where we work with youth groups and schools to support students in conducting healthy food walk audits to collect information about their neighborhood conditions from one community location or one community site to other food outlets, like a fast food restaurant, a grocery store, or maybe even a corner store. Also looking at letter writing campaigns or policy analysis, right? This is a project that we do at the Capital Market, both with people at all ages, to engage people in advocacy and policy analysis by writing persuasive letters to local elected officials about community food issues and local food-related policies that matter most to them. Students can map the government structure, enhancing their understanding of civic engagement and the overall impact of governance on food justice. Also looking at integrating STEAM activities, such as indoor aquaponics or hydroponics, as part of their work to include things around pollution measurements or soil testing. And then one thing that I find really exciting is organizing a career fair for where professionals demonstrate their jobs through hands-on activity and role playing. In the summer of 2020 or 2019, I did a workshop at our community garden with maybe about 200 high school students. And one of the things that saddened me or frustrated me the most was that there were so many students who just attributed gardening or farm work with slavery, right? The reality is the career span for growing in green technology around the food systems includes engineers, food scientists, public health officials, urban planners, soil scientists, policy analysis, a variety of different people. And so having those food systems career fairs can really help educate students and also set them up for their future in different ways. Excuse me. So finally, I really just want to conclude with this idea that food is one of the most important resources that we have access to. In addition to it being a critical source of sustenance, it is important for our physical bodies and communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brittany. This was so informative. I know we all learned a lot from you, and I know people are also going to be glad that they didn't know that they had this gem of the capital market right here in Prince George's County. So now that everyone knows about the capital market, make sure you go out and support Capital Market. Make sure you look up their website. They have awesome farmers markets. So I want to really quickly just do a little bit of chat engagement with you guys, following up to Brittany's presentation before we move on to our next speaker. And I'm only sharing my screen so that you could see what we want you to do. So thinking about what Brittany has talked about, and then when I mentioned food apartheid a little earlier, I want you to think about what do you think would most effectively address food apartheid within your communities? So if you think education and awareness are most important, put a plus sign in the chat. If you think local farming initiatives are more important, put an asterisk or star for some of you in the chat. And or if you think overall food, improved food access policies, put a pound sign in the chat. But if you think that we can't have one without the other and that we need all of these systems to be able to work together, I want you to put a dollar sign in the chat. Oh, wow. I see lots and lots of dollar signs there. Wow. Thank you for that. So what we're going to do now is transition just a little bit and shift gears, and we're going to talk about some air quality things here in Prince George's County. And our next speaker is Mr. Charles Romanihi, and Charles is with the I'm sorry, they had a name change. Charles is with the EJ lab, excuse me, at University of Maryland, and he is going to talk with us about air quality matters in Prince George's County. Charles, I mentioned, he's also a former manager or current manager of the well at Oxen Run, which is powered by DC Greens, and it's located in Ward 8 in Washington, D.C. He's also a former health and safety manager at KIPP, DC Public Charter Schools, and he holds a master's in public health from Dominion University. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Charles.
Thank you so much for that. Can everyone hear me okay? And can see my presentation okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for that. My name is Charles Romanigi, and I'm with the EJ Lab, University of Maryland School of Public Health. And I'll be doing a very high level kind of walkthrough of air quality monitoring in Prince George's County, and kind of talk a little bit about the work that we do with Prince George's County Public Schools. Just some objectives for this walkthrough. We'll start at a high level, just talking about some air quality basics, just grounding ourselves in some information and some knowledge about air quality. And then we'll talk about that connection that's so important tonight, right? That link between air quality and environmental justice. And then I'll just talk a little bit about the project that we have going on with PGCPS and kind of how we're taking action to address the air quality issues, not only in PG, but in the region. So just getting ourselves grounded, I think it's really important for us to understand what air quality is, what air pollution is. So air quality just refers to the condition of the air around you, what it's like, right? What's it made of, what's in it, what's the composition of the air. That's our air quality. And then it takes us to pollution, or understanding what a pollutant is. Pollutant is really just any type of harmful contaminant. So that leads us to good air quality, is just represented by air that is free from pollutants, right? Free from smoke, dust, smog, and any other thing that's just nice for our bodies or nice for the environment. Okay, so again, quick overview. I'm sure you all know this very well. Where does air pollution come from? You have different types of air pollution and different types of sources. So really, air pollution comes from all different angles and all different sources, right? You have mobile sources, right? When we think about cars, general traffic, trucks, motorboats, ships, and things like that. These are mobile sources, and they contribute incredibly to air pollution. We also have stationary sources, right? Like factories and power plants. They also contribute to air pollution. Then, we spoke a little bit about farms and agriculture. You have to think about our area sources. So these are pollution sources based in one place, but they're really spread out. So you can think about farms, cities and things like that, right? Kind of in one general area, but kind of spread out, contributing to air pollution. And then, of course, we have natural sources, right? Lightning, fires, wildfires, volcanic eruptions. And these natural sources also contribute to air pollution. So just talking a little bit about the different kinds of pollutants that are out there. Here, at a high level, we just break them down into two components. So we have criteria air pollutants. These are pollutants that are widespread and monitored by our government, monitored by the EPA, and they include ozone. This is ground level ozone, bad. Ozone in the sky, good. So there's a distinction there. We're talking about ground level ozone here. Particulate matter, and I'll do a little bit of a deep dive on particulate matter as particulate matter is relevant to our project with County Public Schools. Sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, lead. Of course, I know we spoke a little bit about lead earlier and the problems that it causes, and carbon monoxide as well. And then we have hazardous air pollutants. which cause major health concerns and have major health consequences, which includes these big words that I'm going to struggle to pronounce, like benzene, perchloroethylene, methylene chloride, and many, many other organic compounds that can really cause a lot of problems when they're in the air. So we're just going to zoom in on particulate matter just a little bit. Particulate matter is tiny particles in the air that can form when pollution from sources like power plants and cars mix together. Fully formed particulate matter can come from fires, dirt roads, fields, construction sites, and things like that. We're going to particularly zoom in on PM 2.5. You can see these little pink circles over here to the right. PM 2.5 stands for particulate matter that is 2.5 micrometers or microns or smaller in diameter. To give you a sense of how small this is, a human hair is about 70 microns or 70 micrometers, which means that PM 2.5 particles are about 30 times smaller than the width of a human hair. If you just pluck out one of your hair, my hair's falling out, so that shouldn't be a problem. Pluck off one of your hairs, it gives you an idea of how small PM 2.5 is and why it can be so problematic. Because PM 2.5 particles are so small, they can be inhaled deep into your lungs and even into your bloodstream, right? Since PM 2.5 particles are so small, they can get past your body's natural defenses, like your mucus in your nose, your throat, and they can settle real deep in your lungs. And over time, right, exposure to high levels of PM 2.5 can lead to health problems like asthma attacks, lung infections, heart disease, and even premature death in people with existing health issues. So again, making that connection, we learned a little bit about air quality and what it is and what it means. We have to make that connection to environmental justice, right? So how can air quality be an EJ issue, an environmental justice may be a question in your mind? Well, studies show that communities with more people from minority backgrounds often experience higher levels of air pollution compared to mostly white communities. PM 2.5 pollution from most sources affect Black, Hispanic, and Asian communities more than white communities. As you can see the breakdown of percentages here below. 14 out of 20.7 million in areas with dangerous levels of ozone are people of color. And 60% of people close to facilities with dangerous levels of benzene are people of color. When air pollution is distributed unfairly and health consequences are disproportionately felt by a certain group, right? Those isms, right? It's an EJ issue, right? So pollution in the air, health consequences, those are the makings of an EJ issue, which means that we have to. Some more questions that may pop up in your mind, right? As you go through your day or go through this, as you listen to me talk, how can I find out my local air quality? Well, you can visit www.airnow.gov. I don't believe this website has been taken down yet. I think it's still a resource for us. And you'll be able to put in your zip code and you can check the air quality index in your area. So that's an immediate way that you can kind of empower yourself to understand what's going on in my kind of local area, in my zip code, what's the air like. It'll give you a nice little color-coded index, with green being good and purple being not so good. Or very bad. And it'll let you just give you some baseline information, some everyday information on how you can on what the quality of your air is like in your area. Another question you may have is, what can I do if my local air quality is poor? Right. So you see purple or you see red or something like that. I don't want to go outside. What should I do? Well, these are just some quick things that you can pull out your pocket to do, just again to empower yourself. So that you can reduce your risk of coming in contact with poor air quality. You can do things that are, less fatiguing or less strenuous. You can spend less time doing things outside. It's poor air quality outside. You don't want to kind of be breathing it in, so you want to stay indoors. You want to avoid traffic-related air pollution. or avoid areas with high traffic. As we know, vehicles are going to give off air pollution. Do something, that thing that you were going to do outside, you can do that thing another day, or you can do something inside instead. These are just some quick ways that you can keep yourself safe and empower yourself. And how can I contribute to better air quality? Right, you can avoid smoking, avoid lighting fires, and avoid excess electricity consumption. You can try to reduce usage and consider implementing air filters with HEPA technology or HEPA filters. And you can, when choosing your products at the store, you can look for ones that are labeled as low in VOCs or volatile organic compounds. And here's just a slide that gives an overview of the work, the air quality monitoring work that we do in PG County schools. So the EJ Lab has partnered with Prince George's County Public Schools since 2021 to monitor PM 2.5 that we spoke about previously using purple air sensors. I know many of you are probably familiar with those. And we train students on air quality data collection. Really our big objective is to establish a county-wide air quality monitoring network and build environmental literacy, ultimately to reduce pollution, exposure in vulnerable communities. One of the key findings that's interesting to this group is that we found that PM 2.5 levels at Fairmont Heights High School exceeded US EPA guidelines. And at all schools that we were monitoring, the PM 2.5 levels exceeded the World Health Organization standards, right? So that, again, another reason for us to take action and be alert, and another reason why this work and this monitoring effort and this partnership with the school is so important. And just talking a little bit about, the impact that we've made. We've ultimately expanded monitoring to other schools, throughout the county, and which ultimately supports pollution remediation and promoting environmental justice using low-cost, student-driven air monitoring. So the partnership has been great. The work is fun, and it's ultimately important, getting out there and taking action, right? When we see that the air quality is poor, the partnership not only with PG County Public Schools, but with the rest of our community, with churches, with businesses. It's really important for us to identify where the hazards are and for us to ultimately take action. So I hope that wasn't too quick. I know that was high level. If you have any questions or want any follow-up or any additional information, want to take a deep dive into what's going on, you can go to www.ejlab.org and find out all about the air quality monitoring projects and all the other EJ projects that we have going on at the EJ Lab. And if you have any particular questions about air quality or what I presented tonight, feel free to reach to me at my email.
Thank you so much, Charles. Oh, we have a lot of questions in the chat about air quality. I do want to respect people's time. We're going to be looking through those questions later on this evening. Before, we're going to take a wellness break. We're going to do a small breakout. But right now, I want to give the room back to Antonio.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. Thanks, Charles, for that presentation. As well as Brittany before. And I think one thing I do want to highlight is that I'm really happy to see people are active in the chat, talking about problems, solutions, kind of thinking things through. I think another big point is that, environmental injustice leads to fewer choices or more expensive choices. People have been talking about energy costs, food choice. And I'm pretty sure we're kind of based in different parts of the county. So environmental injustices are kind of affecting us in different ways, not just our pocketbook, but also our health and our mental health as well. So next up, we have Joshua Smalley. He is the CEO of Truly Solar. He'll be talking about energy equity, green infrastructure, and solar. He's a fellow PG County native. He's also a UMD alum, and he co-founded Truly Solar with his father. So this is a family business, which is really cool to see. They work together to advance residential commercial solutions. So Joshua, you're up.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you, Nicole, for having me. This is one of, I would say environmental justice is amongst one of my biggest passions that I've, throughout my professional career, I've kind of fell in love with. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak, especially in regards to energy equity as it relates to solar. Nicole, if you can do me a favor, can you make me a co-host again so I can share my screen? Excuse me, I had some technical difficulties, so yeah, appreciate it. Let me see. Okay, cool, we're good. And I do have some videos as well. Okay, cool. Can everybody see my screen all right? Awesome. So I'll be speaking about energy equity as it relates to solar and environmental justice. The title of the presentation is Shining a Light on Energy Equity, Bridging the Energy Gap Through Solar. And again, my name is Joshua Smalley, and I am the CEO of Truly Solar. So to start, I want to speak a bit about how our energy generation and how we use our energy currently is hurting the planet. So just for this country alone, the United States relies on about 83% of its energy consumption from fossil fuels. For those who don't know what fossil fuels are like coal, for example. That's probably the biggest source of fossil fuel. So burning fossil fuels such as coal kind of pollutes the air, doesn't kind of, but it definitely pollutes the air. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the presentation before speaking about air quality. Now, the pollution and the whole crux of the matter is the pollution that traps the heat in the earth and that warms or increases the planet's temperature, which is something known as global warming. And this global warming can cause climate change, which I'll get into a little further on in the presentation. Now, this is just an image of a coal plant, and as you can see, it's emitting a lot of pollution into the air. I know in Maryland, we're working on shutting down mostly all of these sort of plants, which is a very positive thing for the state. Now, these are a couple of images of the effects of global warming. So this image to the left here, this is Hurricane Helene in Florida. Very, very, very catastrophic hurricane. Displaced a lot of people. And it was almost on par with Katrina of 2005. If you go down to the right bottom here, this is a picture of a glacier. So the picture of the glacier was taken in 1967. And it's the same glacier compared to in 2024. And as you can see, most of the ice has melted. This kind of situation is caused because of, again, global warming and the heating up of the Earth's atmosphere. So most of the ice is gone here. The waters, if you can kind of see in the black and white, this looks like it was sort of like a bigger body of water. Where the water starts kind of has been impacted in this 2024 image. So a lot of melting, and this kind of activity leads to this picture here in the top right, which is a picture of a city underwater. So glaciers melting, the ice caps melting leads to the rising of the sea level. So in about 20 years or so, so right now it's 2025, in about 20 years or so, this picture right here of a city underwater, Miami is looking to be like this, parts of California is looking to be like this, parts of New Orleans, is looking to be like this if we don't do something to help control the rising sea levels. And again, these are all effects of global warming. And this is a video if it'll load. Awesome. So this is something that happened recently, the LA wildfires. This video, I came across this video, it was extremely interesting and intriguing. And it shows also the effects of global warming and how climate change can lead to very, very disastrous and catastrophic events.
California's famed coastline flattened.
And can everyone hear my sound? Just give me a thumbs up if it's good. Awesome.
And charred. The scale of this disaster hard to comprehend.
Pretty devastating. I don't think LA's seen anything like this before.
I hope in the future we can find a way to maybe even better prepare or to prevent this from ever happening again.
So how did an inferno sweep through suburban Los Angeles in the middle of winter? The LA Fire Department says the blaze started here, in this residential neighbourhood on the edge of a mountain ridgeline. It quickly spread to this expansive area, and eventually new fires broke out in other parts of the city. The fires were fuelled by a dangerous wind event, which brought hot, hurricane-force gales. Here, a satellite image shows the Santa Ana winds created by the mountainous landscape in California and surrounding states. Air pressure builds in the high grounds of the desert. The wind warms up as it descends the mountains and then speeds up as it passes through narrow canyons. Those gusts fanned flames that firefighters couldn't control.
The fires will not stop while those winds are blowing. Santa Ana means devil wind for good reason.
Another factor, extra dry conditions this year, an excess fuel load in the area.
There's been very little rain at typically the time of the year when there is helpful rain. This is when Southern California gets its needed rain for the entire year during the winter months. It just hasn't happened.
The parched grounds in densely populated areas, a recipe for disaster.
The last two winters have been very prolific in terms of rain and mountain snow, and that caused vegetation to green up. And then when it's been dry in the last several months, it all dried out and created a tinderbox.
It's an almost impossible task to contain fires in these conditions. Now emergency services in some parts of the city are running low on an essential resource.
100 fire engines, flowing water. We are gonna stretch our water system.
These fires forcing residents and authorities to redefine disaster season.
Unfortunately, we're seeing climate change in action. We're seeing worldwide lengthening fire seasons.
The global impacts of these fires still unfolding. Isabella Higgins, ABC News.
So Nevaeh has access. Who is this? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you. So one person did not. Oh no, you did all turn in. So let me see if you guys all.
Hello, please mute yourself.
I have access to Genius. So Gab has access. What about Key? Oh, Key John.
Sorry about that, Josh. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Excuse me. So as we can see, the LA wildfires, the root cause of it was an environmental cause. The winds, the temperature of the winds, the pressure of the winds, the lack of rain or the drought caused that area to be, extremely drier than what it's used to being. So all of those factors came together and you have the LA wildfires. So we have to find a different way to use energy, generate energy. We must find something different. We have to do something different. And one of the reasons why I love being in Maryland is because we're one of the leaders for that something different, especially when it comes to renewable. But before we get to what Maryland is doing, I want to bring this point a little closer home. Another example of an environmental kind of catastrophic situation, in a sense, on a lesser scale, was in July 2023. It was record temperatures in Maryland. Multiple cities, several areas reached over 100 degrees. It was very intense. The heat index, or better yet, all the heat index is a measure of how it feels, considering humidity as well, including humidity. It exceeded, most parts or some parts of Maryland exceeded over 110 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very dangerous. And it led to, it led to 497 heat-related hospital visits in Maryland during that time span of the heat wave. And it also led to a strain on resources. And this particularly helps me to segue into the solar piece. But I want to watch this brief video that goes into how exactly the resources were strained and the impact that had on us.
Want to hand off your taxes? Get more from your tax expert and spend less. We'll beat what you paid your tax pro last year when you switch to a TurboTax full-service expert.
Well, the severe heat is putting our power system into overdrive.
Operators are doing everything they can to make sure everything is running smoothly. Dennis Valera joined us now in the studio with more on their efforts. Dennis.
Yeah, Denise and Vic, you know, it's very, very rough right now because of just all the demand that's happening on our power system. Now, Maryland is actually part of the largest grid in the country. Now, seeing the forecast, the regional transmission operator in charge of it started putting in some precautions last weekend. Our train system's also dealing with some issues because of the heat.
And our job is to keep the power on.
PJM is in charge of the power grid across 13 states and Washington, D.C., ensuring utility companies like BGE are able to provide service. Michael Bryson, Senior VP of Operations, says since their whole footprint is going to be dealing with scorching heat for days, they issued an Energy Emergency Alert Level 1.
We have all of our generation on the system ready to run sometime today to be able to serve the demand on the system that's certainly increased because of the level of heat.
Train lines are also warning travelers to be prepared for heat-related delays. While trains were largely running on time when we got to Penn Station, Amtrak reported delays of up to 40 to 50 minutes. The MTA also canceled a train Thursday and Friday because of the heat. David Harris and his wife headed to New York City. They came extra early in case of delays.
Well, I checked online and it said delayed. I went, oh, because we've got to get to the apartment, change, go to dinner, to go to a play tonight.
The MTA also said light rail is now running on reduced speed for the time being. That's something Kevin Stevenson has seen a lot. He takes the train to get to work.
I know through talking to the conductors, I know that they have to take it slower sometimes just due to the heat, and I know this is probably one of the hottest, weekends that we'll probably have, this summer.
Now, BGE recommends conserving energy to alleviate demand on the grid. They say to close shades and blinds to lessen the need for AC, reduce hot water usage, and maybe avoid cooking too much with your stove and oven for now. Back to you.
Awesome. So as you guys can see, because of this heat-related incident, or this heat wave, strained resources, caused
Peace and love. How y'all feel?
Okay, there we go. Cause people to be heavily inconvenienced. And the strain on the grid is a piece that we're even experiencing now. The strain on the grid, when the grid has to go into overdrive, it does a lot of things. But one of the most impactful things it does, it drives electricity costs up, right? So a lot of homeowners are seeing and experiencing increased utility bills. That is, again, a byproduct of global warming and how it's affecting the grid and the infrastructure, because the grid is so old, which is another reason why we need to transition to renewable sources. A couple of those, well, before I get into what the renewable sources are in the solar piece, I want to touch and highlight on Maryland's energy mix now. And as I said before, I'm glad that Maryland is in the forefront with a lot of the states in regards to its energy mix. So in 2001, Maryland was 62% coal, which is fossil fuel, 4% natural gas. Natural gas is also a fossil fuel, but it's not as I guess, what's a good word? Not as detrimental as coal when it's burnt. So it is a fossil fuel, but not on the scale as coal. Nuclear, 30%, hydro, which is water, hydropower, 3% and 1% renewable. Fast forward to 2019, we are 38% natural gas, 38% nuclear, 14% coal, which is a tremendous decrease from 2001, 6% hydro, and 4% renewable. So renewable is considered like solar and wind power, and also biomass. I'll get into that a little bit. So, okay, awesome. These are pictures, just visual examples of some renewable energies. This is a solar system, a ground mount residential solar system right here. This is actually a hydropower plant that we have in Maryland. Hydropower is when you use the water, the current of the water to help produce electricity. The bottom left here, these are some wind, offshore wind farms. So the wind turbines generate wind energy. And here is a biomass facility that's located, I believe, in Baltimore. And you take the waste, so people's waste, food waste, and you convert that into energy. That's another clean energy source. So these are the clean energy sources that we have. But there's something specific about solar that makes it the most accessible right now, which is why I'm going to focus on this. So not only is solar my area of expertise, but there's a reason why solar is the most accessible right now source of energy, or clean energy. The reason why is it's the most abundant. The most abundant because it's energy straight from the sun. You can't measure the sun. There's no cap on the sun. There's no limit on the sun. Also, because of Joe Biden's administration and the funds that they, I believe Ms. Nicole alluded to, the Justice 40 initiative, a lot of funds were put into developing solar technology. So right now, solar is the most abundant, also the most accessible. Also, solar produces energy without greenhouse gas emission or without carbon emission. Also, solar promotes energy independence, meaning that you can alleviate the stress on the grid if you use a lot of solar energy, because when I say independent, I mean there are solar batteries that you can get, and there are battery facilities that are being built right now where you produce the energy from the solar, you store the energy in the battery, you have no need to utilize the grid as much, right? So that's what I mean when I say it promotes energy independence. Also, solar creates jobs, creates green jobs, a multitude of them. You have of course you have the installers. You have companies like mine, which are essentially we partner with install companies and help homeowners understand how to go solar, help businesses understand how to go solar. There are also consultant positions available with renewable energy, especially with solar. So there's a multitude of jobs that solar, the development of solar creates. Also, which to help stimulate economic growth through creating these jobs and through the energy independence. You could put more money back into homeowners' pockets with energy independence, creating jobs, help to stimulate economic growth. Maryland in specific has a 100% clean energy goal by 2035 with a 15% solar carve out. Maryland and DC have the most aggressive renewable energy mandates in the country right now. DC has a renewable mandate. They want to be 100% clean by 2032. I'll get into that slightly. I'll touch on that a little later on. So this is where we come to the environmental justice piece of it. So with solar, yes, it's the most abundant. Yes, it's the most accessible. But there are definitely barriers to solar access, especially when we're talking about underrepresented communities. But I'll get into this too. I'll allude to it, but I'll get into it a little more. There are things being done to address these barriers, but these are the four main barriers. The first, access to financing. So solar, of course, we know solar isn't free. There was a time when solar first came out where you would have to pay up front all of the costs for solar. So access to financing is one of the barriers, and some states continue to be a barrier, especially to those underrepresented communities. Limited roof space or property access is also a major barrier. A lot of, especially in the underrepresented communities, most underrepresented communities, especially, and I have experience with this, especially like in cities like Baltimore or even in DC, homeowners there, and I'm speaking from homeowners because that's where most of my experience comes from. Homeowners are charged more for their energy in those spaces, and there aren't many renewable options in those areas either. For example, if you look in DC, it's a lot of row homes in those areas. The same in Baltimore, it's a lot of row homes when you get deep into in the city in those areas. But a lot of the homeowners there use a lot of energy. People have families, 3, 4 kids, this, that, and the third. So it's a lot of energy use that goes on, but limited roof space. So you can if you can afford a solar system, if you qualify for the solar system, another barrier or access to finance is the credit score requirement. That is something else that holds up a lot of homeowners from going solar. But if you're in one of those areas, you qualify via credit, you can put solar on your roof, there's limited roof space, meaning that we can put panels there, but it's not enough panels to cover the energy that you're using. So then you end up in a situation where the bulk of your money is still going to the utility company, because we can only get maybe 30% solar, or 30% what we call in our industry offset, meaning 30% of your energy comes from solar, or maybe 20%, or maybe sometimes it may be even less than that, considering how big the roof is on one of those homes. Another barrier is awareness and information gaps. And this, a great example, there is more information about how to go solar co-ops, and more renewable, kind of renewable workshops such as this. There's more of that going on in Montgomery County than it is in Prince George's County, right? There's an information gap there, an awareness gap. There's more workshops and more awareness of renewable sources. There's more awareness in, for example, Howard County than it is in DC or in Baltimore City. So those kind of awareness and information gaps is another barrier to solar, because you'll be surprised how many times I go into someone's house and they don't understand how solar works, but they've sat down with someone. And that's another thing. There is a predator-prey sort of situation that's going on with a lot of the installation companies. They have their own in-house sales teams. They target underserved communities, underdeserved communities, to go and put solar on their homes, don't really let them know how it works. And they end up in a situation where they're maybe paying more than when they were before they put the solar on their roof, right? So it's awareness and information gaps all throughout the solar space. And there are also systematic inequalities. One being, everyone doesn't have access to the solar tax credit, right? So Joe Biden passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which moved the solar tax credit from 26% to 30% tax credit, which means they'll cover 30% of the total cost of the system, the government will, but you have to have tax liability for that, right? So you have to owe Uncle Sam a pretty penny at the end of the year in order to take full advantage, and I say full advantage, of the tax credit. Some in the underdeserved communities don't owe Uncle Sam that much at the end of the year, not enough to cover not enough to cover a solar system. So they don't have access to that tax credit, which can help cover some of the cost of solar, right? So then we're back at square one, meaning a barrier is access to financing, right? So those are just some of the barriers of access to going solar and the solar technology in the space. Now I'm going to talk a bit about how those or the ways in which those barriers are being addressed. One of my favorite ways in which they're being addressed is is Maryland's community solar program. So the Office of the People's Council, if you go to their website, they have a whole lot of information about community solar. Essentially, Maryland has about 70 or so community solar farms that they built. And I'll exit my screen really quick just to show you guys one in particular. So it's one on Kirby Road in Clinton, Maryland. This is how it looks. Maryland has about 70 of these that they have partnered with solar developers to build. And with these being built, the whole idea is homeowners, renters, you don't have to have a property or be a property owner to get access to solar energy. So you get to help to save the planet, and you also help to save a little bit of money. Now, rooftop solar, you save the planet and you put a lot more money back in your pocket. But with community solar, homeowners see anywhere between 10 and 25% decrease on their energy costs when they connect to a local solar farm. So it's serving two things. It's helping to put a little bit of money back in your pocket, but it's also helping to fight global warming and climate change by saving the planet, getting cleaner energy, right? Financial assistance and incentives is another thing, or another way that the barriers to access of solar are being addressed. So there are government programs and grants and rebates to help cover the cost of solar. So one of those is the 30% tax credit. Underdeserved communities don't necessarily take advantage, or excuse me, a lot of the underdeserved population don't take full advantage of the 30% tax credit. But there are also innovative financing options, like, for example, a low interest loan or a power purchase agreement, where essentially you pay for the power the system produces at a very much so cheaper rate. All of these are no upfront cost. With Joe Biden's Justice 40 initiative, he also passed what is known as the Solar for All grant, where I believe I think it was either $7 million or so went into the development for homeowners to put solar on their houses at no cost and no credit check. So these kind of incentives and programs for underdeserved communities are kind of addressing these barriers to access for solar. Also, different policies are being created to ensure equitable solar access. Different grants for funding is coming down the pipe for like nonprofits and commercial, even homeowners. It was actually some more funding just got passed to help homeowners in underdeserved communities go solar, also as well as churches as well. So one of my favorite points in the Inflation Reduction Act was now churches or any nonprofit, when they put solar on their facility, their church or their nonprofit facility, because they are tax exempt, they now can take that tax credit and it's a direct pay to their bank account. So the government will pay a nonprofit or a church 30% of the total solar cost. They'll just give it to you in the form of a direct pay. And I like that because it opens up access to solar even for the nonprofit and the church for the church fronts as well. And this is just another picture of the solar farm on Kirby Road. I wasn't sure if you all would be able to see the picture here, so that's why I went to it on Google Maps too. And I want to talk a bit about community solar, just a little bit. I want to highlight that because community solar is one way that everyone, as I said, can participate in going solar. And you don't have to own a house and you don't have to put panels on your roof. Now, the community solar program started as a pilot program in 2015, and it was meant strictly for underrepresented communities. Matter of fact, low moderate income homeowners, renters, they get 25% off of their energy costs when they connect to the local solar farm. And everyone else, which we call like non-LMI subscribers, is 10%, right? So this program was made with the underdeserved and underrepresented communities in the forefront. So how it works, the participants subscribe or reserve their spot on a share of the local solar farm, and you receive energy credits on your utility bill, kind of like in the manner of rooftop solar. And this cost is no cost to opt in, no cost to opt out, no sort of long-term contracts. And the reason is because all of Marylanders' taxpaying dollars actually goes into the financing and development of these solar farms. As of June 2023, the community solar program has actually made a permanent program as well. So this program will be here to stay. Yeah, and I went over a little bit of how community solar works, but this is again a slide about how it works. You join the local solar farm, generate your home generates a piece of energy off the solar farm. You get those solar credits, and that's how you save money, also while saving the planet. And I want to speak a little bit too want to jump back briefly about the rooftop solar piece. So as of right now, there are financing options. Like I just partnered with a finance company that puts solar on anyone in like the Pepco. Right now, it's only for the Pepco service utility area, but it's a solar lease, which is it's a pretty good program. With the solar lease program, meaning you don't own the system, but you take advantage of the energy savings, right? And there's no credit check. So I say that to say that these programs are being worked in the underdeserved or underrepresented communities are being able to have easier access to solar, especially now than they were even 2 or 3 years ago. And I want to touch on the last piece in my last topic. I want to touch on the principles of environmental justice that my presentation really touched on. So I believe that the principles that we really touched on in my presentation was the second principle, which is environmental justice demands that public policy be based on mutual respect and justice for all people, free from any form of discrimination or bias. This being the community solar legislation, also the solar for all grants, and also the legislation, even the tax credit legislation. I believe that these public policies really make it easier for people to have a renewable source of energy. Also, I want to jump to the environmental justice principle. Where was it? Oh, 16, call for the education of present and future generations, which emphasize social and environmental issues based on experience. So I think that this resonates with the presentation as well, because I know the community solar programs, they have community solar subscriber organizations. Their job is to specifically go around and educate the community about the program and about community solar, how it works. So this education piece is extremely important, and it will close the gap, the information and awareness gap. So that will really help people to become more renewable, and again, to save money and to put a little bit more money back in their pocket, but also do their job to save the planet. So that brings an end to my presentation. I appreciate you all, and Ms. Nicole, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Josh. That was very informative. We really appreciate it. You have a lot of questions in the chat. So what I want to do, we're going to take the questions from the chat and try to get back to you all with a lot of those questions. But what I want to do in the interest of time, because I know that we have some wonderful Prince George's County scholars here on the line. Before we go into a 10-minute break, I want to give some of our students the opportunity to provide some input. Some of you were making some great comments in the chat, and you guys are our future, so we would love to hear from you. So if any of you just want to come off of mute really quickly, feel free to do that. We would love to hear from you before we go into a 10-minute break. And Antonio is going to share more about that after we have some input from our scholars.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Gordon.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been following just YouTube videos about battery technologies like for solar and wind, and because they only work when it's windy or sunny. So yeah, like everybody knows they have to store energy that time to use when the demand peaks, like in the evening. But last I heard, they don't have very good batteries for that large scale. People keep racing to develop it. And I was wondering if they keep saying new batteries are on the way. So, and well, like in Germany, they went all against nuclear, and unlike France, they went all nuclear. So now Germany said, you have to go with green, like solar and wind. But because they don't put out electricity when it's not sunny or windy, they always have to have a coal plant right beside them. Now their power bills are way expensive, and they're putting out more pollution. And so are the better batteries on the way?
Yeah, if I may answer, yes, there. So it's funny. I was having a conversation about this actually last week. The battery space is in the solar battery space is where the solar panel space was about 10 to 13 years ago. And I say that because as more money is um, allocated for specifically the battery technology, the battery technology will become better. The battery technology will become more accessible, and the battery technology will be able. It'll be able to um, grow on a larger scale, kind of similar to where the solar panel technology is right now. So I
Not living until 720. So, um,
so I say to your point, yes, right now, it seems like people are or different countries need to rely on. It's almost like a dual effort right now. Meaning, yes, you do have some fossil fuel working in conjunction with renewable technology. But I say in the future, in about 10 to 13 years or so, the battery technology will be in a space where we can use majority solar and wind. Because as you said, you're absolutely right. Solar and wind, and specifically solar, is the renewable energy that, or the means of renewable energy that a lot of different countries are looking to make the most prominent. So yeah, I hope I was able to shed some light a little bit on your
Yeah.
question.
Thank you for that, Josh. I do want to stress, um, now, if there are students, uh, Prince George's County students still on the line, we would love to hear from you. But if not, I'm going to go ahead and transition back over to Antonio. So we'll wait about 15 seconds. If we don't hear from any of our student scholars, then we'll transition over to Antonio for him to take us out to break.
If I could just say something real quick.
Absolutely.
Hello all. My name is James Duan Garcia. I'm one of the student scholars that was invited to this beautiful environmental justice workshop. And as far as I wanted to say about this presentation, that I am absolutely so grateful that I was invited to this presentation, because let me tell you, I've learned a lot from all the great presenters that we've had on here. And I'll be honest, I've had heard the word environmental justice in the past, but I don't think it was until today that I learned so much in depth about environmental justice with air quality and food sustainability. So I just want to say that you guys are really great presenters, and I'm really grateful to be here this evening.
Thank you so much, James. We are glad that you are here. All right, Antonio, I guess back over to you.
Okay. Thank you, James, for sharing that. Thank you, Joshua, for that presentation. I think there's a lot of information. The chat was still active, so I'm glad everyone is still with us. So we're going to take a 10-minute wellness break. So it's 7:12 now. So at 7:22, we will return. Feel free to stretch, get a snack, especially if you've been like me, been sitting this entire time, get that blood flow going back again. So see everyone back in 10 minutes, 7:22.
Thank you, Antonio.
Can I ask what time this is supposed to be over tonight?
Yes, we'll probably go until about 8:15, 8:20, and then at the end, Donald is going to have some information for you guys to wrap up. We are going to forego one of the breakout sessions. When we come back from break, there will be two more presentations, one specifically on green jobs in the economy. And the next one after that will be the final one. And that one will be specifically for educators. We're going to have um, one of our speakers working with educators to teach you how to incorporate environmental justice education into your curriculums. And she will have a breakout activity specifically for educators.
Okay. Just so you know, I'm going to be transitioning, so I'm going to get off for a minute and then I'll come back on.
All right, no problem. Thank you. Everyone, we have 2 minutes before break is over.
All right, everybody. I hope you were able to stretch, get a snack, and otherwise take advantage of the wellness break. We are back. I want to introduce our next presenter, our next speaker, Yolanda S. Bonner, who is the Associate Director at the Institute for Market Transformation. And she's going to talk a little bit about green jobs and the green economy, which would be a great follow-up to our previous presentation. Yolanda has over a decade of experience in facility and operations in residential, commercial, and local government. So with that, Yolanda.
Thank you, Antonio. I appreciate that. I am going to share my screen. And for the sake of time, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we get you guys out of here for work and school tomorrow. So let me, in some of these slides, I'm going to briefly quickly go through because I would really like to give you all a demo and show you how you can take this information and share it with, especially if you're an educator, how you can take this information and share it with your students or your outside network or any individual like that. So again, my name is Yolanda Bonner, and I do thank you, Nikki, and the others for having us here. I would be remiss if I do not speak to the rest of my team. What do I got going on here? Speak to the rest of my team. I am, like Antonio stated, I am the Associate Director of Building Performance with the Building Innovation Hub. My primary duties at the Building Innovation Hub is connecting buildings in the district and the Baltimore City, County, and PG County areas with the Building Energy Performance Policy. I know if you're in the DC area, you've probably heard of it. If you are a building owner, manager, or stakeholder or service provider, Maryland is now picking up speed in the Building Energy Performance Policy, also known as the BEPS, and we've just been given the okay to work with MEA and MDE on making sure the buildings in Maryland are also up to par, become compliant, and get all the information and resources that they need to get through the BEPS. But in doing so, we
Yolanda,
realized, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yolanda, I'm sorry, if I can interject just one moment. Could you please share with our participants what the acronyms mean that you were using? Sorry.
The BEPS, the building, it's called we call it the BEPS for short, but it's called the Building Energy Performance Policy. And that is, I will take DC for instance, because DC is pretty much ahead of everyone in the entire United States area with the BEPS, with implementing the new Building Energy Performance Policy. And it's simply just a way to make sure that buildings are safe and are considered healthy buildings for all of us. Most of us on this call spend about 80 to 90% of our time in a building. So it makes sense to make sure that these buildings are healthy while we're spending most of our days and times in these buildings. And like I stated, I would be remiss if I didn't, introduce you guys to the entire team. Even though we do so much, there's really only 3 of us, and you have the director, Teresa Backus, another associate director, Mary Thomas, and then you have myself. And so we are one of the connectors, the largest resources in the DC and Maryland area. And we connect all of those individual stakeholders with the proper utensils, utilities, resources, and things that they need to make sure that their building is producing at a high performing rate. So with that being said, stating that my job is to make sure that these buildings are certified and meeting compliance with the Building Energy Performance Policy, I realized that there was a need for a greater workforce in doing so. I would do site visits. I would see that buildings did not have trained and educated engineers or trained and educated maintenance staff that understood the basics of this green field. And so I brought back to my team that we should definitely, one of our bigger resources outside of educating them on this Building Energy Performance Policy is having a way for them to connect with individuals who are looking to help them get these buildings up to par and meet compliance. And that was with a workforce development piece. And so a little bit of an overview of how these green jobs in the environmental justice sector connect. Green jobs refer to jobs that contribute to preserving or restoring the environment. Within the building sector, green jobs are focused on creating a more sustainable, energy efficient, and environmental friendly building. These jobs range from designing energy efficiency homes to retrofitting existing buildings, which is typically just making them better. If you have an existing building, upgrading the HVAC, or like the speaker before me stated, adding solar, or upgrading your windows and your roof, just doing upgrades of retrofits to make this building environmental friendly. These jobs range from a multitude of things, and I know that there are a ton of jobs in this environmental justice space, but I'm really going to touch on the buildings and how these buildings tie into environmental justice. So in the coming years, the demand for these roles is truly expected to grow because of policies like the BEPS. Like I stated earlier, Governor Moore last year began to push the BEPS through, although I have also heard that there are going to be some cuts to it, but the policy is still going to continue. So it's best to, get ahead and get the resources that you need to get the help that you need in these buildings to make sure that they are operating for the benefit of everyone. And so how these jobs connect is there are 4 stages in the environmental justice realm. Well, there are 12 stages, but there are about 3 or 4 stages where green jobs, especially these building jobs, these construction jobs, really connect. And one of the most exciting things about green jobs in the building sector is how they intersect with environmental justice. Environmental justice focuses on ensuring that all communities, particularly those that have been historically underserved or protected from environmental harms and have access to economic opportunities. And 3 to 4 out of the 12 stages of the environmental justice, they play an important role in. So I'm going to talk about those 3 roles. And once I talk about those 3 roles, I'm going to stop sharing this particular screen and jump over to the career map and give you a quick 2 to 3 minute demo of how you can maneuver through the career map and how it can help you, your students, and anyone else, again, in your network of people looking to navigate into green jobs. It will show you how you can connect with the training and resources you need to continue to grow. So one of the stages, which we would consider stage 4, in equal protection from environmental hazards. Stage 4 is about ensuring that all people, no matter their background, that they have equal protection from environmental hazards. In the building sector, this means making sure that buildings are designed and built in ways that reduce harmful environmental impacts like poor air quality, which we talked about earlier, or excessive energy use, which someone in the chat was talking about how we could possibly begin to use less energy in the United States. And then you have the which those I'm sorry, someone's speaking. Okay, I'm sorry. So those aspects, you know, they really hinder us from having such healthy and reliable buildings. Green jobs help address these issues by making buildings more efficient, safer, and healthier for residents or any individual that's typically occupying them, especially in those neighborhoods that have been exposed to higher levels of pollution or other environmental risks. Another stage in the environmental justice realm is stage 5, which is access to jobs and economic opportunities, which is all about providing access to jobs and economic opportunities. The green building sector is a great example of how this can work. By focusing on sustainable construction and energy efficiency, green jobs offer solid career paths that can lift individuals and communities out of poverty. So for high schoolers like yourself or the educators, the sector provides opportunities for well-paying jobs that also contribute to the health and well-being of your community. Not only does it give you a career, but it also connects your work to a greater purpose, ensuring a cleaner and sustainable future for everyone. And I'm very much passionate about this because this is technically how my career has been. Although I did not have this green career map to help navigate, when I first moved to the Maryland PG County area, which is 20 years ago this year, I started as an administrative assistant in a property management company and eventually worked my way up into operations management. And now, coincidentally, I'm working in the sustainable field where I used to just work to maintain these buildings, but now I work to maintain buildings and make sure that they're healthy for everyone that's in and out of them on a day-to-day basis. And so this map to me is near and dear to my heart because I played a crucial role in developing it. And one of the last stages of the environmental justice realm is stage 8, where it's the promotion of healthy communities. And in this, green jobs, they not only help you determine your path and your navigation through life, but you can also put this back into your community by helping those buildings that are stationed in your building, especially when we think about areas that are often overlooked. You think about the buildings in those areas that are run down and not taken care of. You, with these tools and this knowledge, can take that information and put it back into your community to help rebuild your community. So by pursuing a green buildings job, you're helping to create spaces where people can thrive, places that support better quality of life, especially in communities that we've already mentioned a million times that are historically and often overlooked.
Hey,
So what I'm going to do.
Yolanda.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Were you meaning to have different slides as you were talking?
No, so that particular slide was just going to stay there. So now we're gonna jump over to
No
the
worries. I just
Capital
had a
Region
few
group.
questions. Thank you.
What time while everyone was talking, I kind of went in and cut down some slides so I can make sure that I hit time. So I cut a few of them out prior to me having to speak. But now we're going to jump over to the Capital Region Green Buildings Career Map. When we were designing this, it was initially for DC, but I felt like Maryland needed to be a part of this talk and this conversation as well. So I changed the name of it to the Capital Region Green Buildings Career Map so that Maryland did not feel not included in this. So this map is for everyone in the region. And while developing it, we touched on resources from as far as the Delaware line to as south as the Richmond, Virginia line for anyone who's looking to utilize this career map. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen here and do a quick demo of the map. Guys are gonna have to bear with me on this because I have so many screens up right now. So to access the map, you would eventually end up on our Building Innovation Hub website, main website. There are two different ways that you can go and view the map. You can either start by the search bar where you can just type in the career map. As you can see, it's one of my most searched topics. Or you can actually just scroll down and we have it here on the main page as well. So. Click on use this tool and it'll take you to another additional landing page. And it gives you a brief description of the map and what it's currently about. It also, if you're an educator or someone in your community that likes to connect people to jobs, we also created a one-page flyer for you to download. And it talks about the career map here where you can post it up in your office, in your classrooms, anywhere that people can see. And you're able to click on this link here and it takes you back to that career map as well. But we also have included here another little small demo on YouTube that talks about the career map and how to navigate through it. And I did forget to mention that this career map is in partnership with DOEE, the Building Innovation Hub, and Julius Education. We started the design of this at the beginning of 2023, and it took us about a year to get it together. And what we did was talk to all of the different resources, CBOs, training facilities, trades associations, to just figure out how can we bridge that gap and connect these jobs for individuals that are either in school or individuals that are already in the midst of their career and want to do a change, or individuals that, know nothing about the green aspect. So here is what the app the career map basically looks like. And we have it broken down into three professional sections, which is considered entry level, mid-level, and senior level. And then we also have it broken down into different building workforce typologies. You can see agricultural, building automation, commercial, residential, and sales and professional services. If you scroll down into the entry level, if you're an individual who is just starting out, if you decided that you wanted to take a different route after school and you thought, hey, I want to be an HVAC apprentice. If you click on HVAC apprentice, you start to see these lines go out. These lines are technically telling you what different career paths you can go to once you become an HVAC apprentice. But starting with HVAC apprentice, you see it gives you the pay of what you should be expecting in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. It gives you the skills and requirements that you should look to have. And if you don't have these skills and requirements, over here are links to different training facilities or training resources in the area that you can go to. So the map is designed to take you from one level to the next. And I always tell myself, I wish I had this when I was navigating my career, but I got to build it out to maybe help the next person. So I'm hoping that everybody finds it useful. So once you make your move as an HVAC apprentice, you can take a look at where you can go from there. If you want to go to building automation, if you want to be a service technician, you can click on that and it will give you the same thing. those lines will take you to the next level, from mid-level to senior level. And you get the same information as you go through this career map. And you can also go backwards if you need to. If you feel like, hey, this isn't what I want to do, this isn't the direction I want to go, what do I need to go back and do in order to get ahead and get to the next level? And if you also scroll down to the bottom, you take a look at all of the different the the steps that you took in trying to figure out what direction you wanted to go. These items begin to save here, and you can actually save this, print this, and take it with you. We developed this as thinking of like a job resource facility. If someone comes into this particular office and hey, they want to know who's hiring or how to get into green jobs, you want to be able to print this out so that you can remember what information you got when you interacted with this map. You're able to save it, either email it to yourself, or you should be able to print it out. And it will help you guide yourself through through the transition of green jobs. Another thing I want to say is that these are the first steps in the first phases of this career map. Phase 2 is set to begin in April, where phase 2 will, let me stop sharing this. I'm going to jump back over to my slides again. Jump back over to my slides. And so what you saw was everything, the details that I just took you through with phase 1. My mouse was phase 1. So the next phase of this map, we plan to incorporate contractor and vendor engagement. Right now, you can just simply go to the map, interact with the map. There's no signing up, there's no entering your information, and you can play with it at will. We're hoping to be able to have you create a vendor or user profile so that you can connect with the contractors that are already in our database. We currently have a database called a vendor matchmaking database, where buildings in the district and in Maryland who are in need of service or energy efficiency upgrades, they go into that database to kind of connect with some of our qualified vendors. And those vendors take it from there. But again, the need is workers. They don't have the workers to get these green jobs or get this green work done. So the second phase, we're hoping to incorporate the contractor and vendor engagement. We're also hoping to incorporate a self-assessment tool where this tool will allow you to input your interest to see where you want to be in the green job world. And another tool that we're hoping to implement is a skill transferability tool. This tool is designed to help those who are probably working, but you're working in a field, let's say you're a barista, and you want to go into the environmental justice, you want to go into the green jobs. This tool is designed to help you figure out where you should go into the green space. I don't know what I just did here. This tool is designed to help you go into the green space or figure out where you should start and how those current tools, how those current skills as a barista can help you navigate into your first role into a green job. And another tool is foundational training. I was listening to the student who was saying that he learned so much from the previous speakers that he never knew. And that's the same with this foundational training aspect, where we want to provide you guys with the basic knowledge and information of sustainable jobs, green jobs, and how to connect and how to grow in this field. And so this tool, again, is designed to help those with no experience, to those with mid-level experience, to those with senior level experience. So don't feel like because if you're an expert in this, it will not help you. It actually can help you continue to grow because again, it's a personal tool that I worked very hard to put together and I did not want to leave anyone out. So if you have any questions about this particular tool, please feel free to reach out to the Building Innovation Hub. Please feel free to send me an email. We do one-on-one webinars with this particular information. I also currently sit on Employ PG's advisory board, where we'll be talking to students through that particular realm on these green jobs and how to get connected to the contractors and vendors in the PG County area. Or let me apologize. I know the Prince George's County and the PG County talk is a little harsh for some people, but I'm from Mississippi, so I'm still learning that difference right there. But Yeah, I will drop it, that information in the chat. I tried to move a little fast for the sake of time so the next speaker can get in and talk. But if you have any questions, just please feel free to reach out to me and we can go from there. And Nikki, you get it back.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. That was fantastic. So many gems in there. Like yourself, I, have a background in facilities, so I just happened to fall in it from having worked in foreign policy and then fell into environmental work. So having a tool like that is awesome. And I really enjoy it. Before we move on to our next speaker, I do want to share with everyone, there's a resource that I put in the chat for you with Prince George's Community College. They have a sustainable energy workforce development program, and the program is open to anyone age 18 and older, so students as well. Um, and if you qualify for the program to take one of the classes, it's completely free to you as long as you are a Prince George's County resident. So do take a look at that flyer. You can download it from the chat. I'll be sure to send it to Donald so that he could share it with all of you. They will have some information sessions coming up this month, and I do believe some of the classes are going to be starting in March and or April. And one more poll for you guys before we move on to Miss Christina. Uh, I know that we were possibly going to, I don't know how many students we have left on the call, but I will say, our students, you are more than welcome to stay on the call. However, the next presentation is going to be heavily focused specifically for educators and incorporating environmental justice education into the curriculum. But, you guys are just as smart, so you may be able to add something to that conversation as well. So before we turn it over to Antonio, who's going to introduce Christina, I want to give you guys, please, about 30 seconds to do one more poll for us.
And Nikki, we've had a few questions about presenters' contact and everything like that, and also the presentations code. So can y'all speak to that real quick?
Yes, absolutely. So I will get all of that information over to Donald, and he can disseminate to everyone who registered to participate today. I know that our speakers, I'm more than happy to chat with you all again on some of this. And in fact, that's what this last poll question is specifically about. Would you like to do deep dive sessions into any of these topics in particular? And what we are going to plan to do maybe in April or some other time before the school year ends is have individual sessions that'll be about an hour or an hour and a half, focusing specifically on each one of these topics so that we're not doing a crash course on everything. All right, so we're almost 50% people have answered the poll. We're going to do 30 more seconds. All right, thank you. We're going to close the poll now. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks everybody
You're
for
welcome.
participating. And Nicole, did you want to chime in real quick?
Oh, I was just sharing the results of the poll.
Oh, yeah.
So we will definitely be following up with Donald to get some other things scheduled for you guys. Thank you guys so much for participating.
And it looks like to me there's a pretty even distribution among all the topics. So I think looks like everyone is interested in just about everything we've been hitting on today in one way or another. So for our last speaker, we have Dr. Christina Kwok. She's a research director at Unbounded Associates, co-founder of the Unbounded Alliance. She's going to get a little bit into the integrating environmental justice education into curriculum. Christina is a social scientist focusing on education and training for climate action. She's worked with a number of huge organizations like UNESCO and the Brookings Institute, but Christina still finds time to give back through her work, such as with the PGCPS Board of Education.
Thanks so much, Antonio. It's a pleasure to be here with y'all. And Nicole, thanks for inviting me. And Yolanda, it was really great to hear your presentation too, and the career maps. I have to say that we have used, I think, some of your sister maps in the solar and wind industry to do research on green learning opportunity deserts in the US and overseas. So it's really cool to see that as a tool for educators and students. I'm going to share my screen. Give me one moment while I put this up here. And I think this is probably the first workshop that I've been in the evening hours where the majority of the participants are still online. So congrats to all of you for your patience and perseverance and sticking with it. So as Antonio mentioned, I am the research director at Unbounded Associates, and we are a small women-owned company based here in the area, and we work on issues of education and climate change, and especially with a climate justice lens infused in that work. And the work that I'm going to present to you today is kind of an amalgamation of different tools and frameworks that we have developed over the last several years and have used with educators around the world, from Morocco to California, and with education designers and curriculum developers and teachers as well. So I have less than 15 minutes to go through these frameworks, so I will go through very speedily. But the overarching framework that I'll be presenting is the climate integrated design process. And so this is a multi-step process for not only integrating environmental justice and climate change topics into your lesson plans or your broader curriculum, but it's really one that centers on environmental and climate justice and on building resilience through action-oriented teaching. And this work is, I think, it intends to enhance your systems thinking approach to considering environmental issues. I think, as you all have heard from all the excellent speakers so far this evening, environmental justice is a complicated topic that touches on all aspects of our lives, from air quality to water quality to food to transportation to energy to jobs, every aspect of our lives, to health. And it does not exclude education as well, right? So education is squarely front and center, especially when it comes to thinking about the breadth of skills that are needed, not only for building resilience among our students and their communities, but ensuring that they are prepared for the types of jobs and realities that are waiting for them when they leave the school system. So without further ado, I'm going to launch straight into this, and I've broken this presentation up into two parts. And I will walk through an example to show you the framework, and then we'll have a little bit of time to do some breakout rooms where you can, familiarize yourself with some of the steps. But it will in no way do justice to this process. We usually do this workshop over several days, so please bear with me. Okay, so first, the first part of this work is identifying the environmental justice issues that are of real deep concern to you and your students and your communities, and connecting them to academic entry points. So our climate integrated design process is actually it's quite a extensive series of steps that incorporates both an identification process as well as a design process. But for teachers and educators, we have actually reduced and consolidated these steps into four steps. And so the first step is around actually identifying those environmental justice issues that are relevant to your students and to their communities. And then we actually bridge those environmental justice issues to academic entry points that you may already be teaching. So the whole idea about this process is to not have to create additional content that you have to teach, but to actually use the materials that you're teaching already and use an environmental justice lens to teach those content. So that whether it's math or reading or science or social studies, history, and so on. And then step 3 is about taking a step back and identifying the learning outcomes that you already have to teach to, the standards that you already have to teach to, and to map across your issues and your entry points, and ensuring that you are actually touching upon the academic standards that you're being held accountable to, right? And then the fourth step is designing that lesson plan or that climate action project that will help culminate your students' learning in an empowering experience. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and I forgot to turn on my timer, so I will try to do this in 10 minutes so that you all have some time to work on this. So we'll start with step 1, and I'm going to walk you through an example in terms of how to kind of use this framework to brainstorm first and then design later. So this is really just, a process of practicing some systems thinking and getting some ideas on paper, and then, coming back and actually designing your lesson plan or activity. So I have in the middle column some suggested resources. These are resources that, unfortunately, with the last 2 weeks, some of these have already gone offline. However, there have been some really forward-looking organizations that are archiving many of these tools, and so I think some of them are still there. Okay, so one of the first questions you might want to ask yourself, or even your students, if you're doing this together with your students, is what is an environmental justice issue impacting your community or your city or your county or your state? For this example, which hopefully this will work. Let's see if there we go. Okay, so I have chosen, just for the sake of this example, stormwater runoff from a nearby power plant is polluting the Patuxent River and nearby residences. So this is, a very simple one. It sounds very familiar to some of the issues that our presenters earlier discussed. And then the next step is to think about, okay, well, once I have identified this issue, what are the human and the more than human consequences of this issue? So what are the impacts? And this is really to try to begin brainstorming all the variety of potential impacts that this particular issue might have. So here I've listed that the quality of life for local residences, wildlife, marine life can be negatively impacted, especially during and after significant storms that might heighten exposure for these entities to harmful and toxic pollutants in the water and soil. So just, again, brainstorming what are those things, those impacts that may occur because of that issue. The next step is to think about the inequities that are either worsened by that issue or even created by that issue. So in this case, looking at local reporting on some of the issues, looking at some of the stories that local community members might be lifting up through their advocacy. For the sake of this example, I've written down that the impacts of stormwater runoff from the power plant is felt most acutely by the surrounding communities of color and disadvantaged communities, leading not only to negative impacts on health, but also to local economic activity. So again, this is just helping us to identify what are the issues that we can potentially bring in to our teaching. The next step, step 2, is about connecting those issues to the existing academic entry points that you already have to teach in class. So this is our sort of our worksheet for this step. And the first step is to ask, what is your academic entry point? So for the purpose of this example, I have taken a look at PGCPS's school readiness profiles, and I've just listed a couple here from kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade. So if you're an educator here, you probably are very familiar with these learning profiles and already have a sense of what you have to teach, right? So for kindergarten math, you might have, be ordering objects by measurable attributes. For third grade reading, you might be describing characters in a story and how their actions contributed to events, and so on, right? So the point here is, what are the things that I'm teaching now that I could hook this issue to, right? For the purposes of this example, I'm going to use a third grade math class that's focused on representing and interpreting data, all right? And for those of you who are math teachers, this might be a little bit more advanced than third grade. I was trying to put my educator hat on, but this may be a little bit advanced. So you'd have to adjust a little bit further. So the next question in this tool is, okay, well, the first thing is to think about, how can I teach about this environmental justice issue and mitigation through this entry point? So mitigation in this context, in the climate context, is the reduction of emissions or the avoidance of emissions. In the disaster risk and response space, it is the reduction of impact. So depending on how you are using mitigation. So in this example, my sort of brainstorm here is to use the EPA's National Stormwater Calculator to have students learn about and interpret data related to factors that can heighten stormwater discharge across different communities in PG County, and compare this to maps of the location of potential polluting sources and waterways. So here, what I'm trying to do is to identify what are the potential sources of polluting sources that can impact waterways, so that we can potentially reduce the potential spillover, right, or the potential stormwater discharge. Or and I'm also thinking about, first we need to understand kind of what are those factors, so that as for my students, I can ensure that we can talk about mitigation. The next question is, how can you teach about your environmental justice issue and adaptation and resilience through this entry point? So with this example, I was thinking, well, I think we probably would want to try to generate ideas about the types of data that they could present to help communities respond to this environmental justice issue of stormwater runoff from nearby power plants, like maybe graphing data on water quality. So thinking about, if we're talking about adaptation or resilience in this context, we probably want to know a little bit about how the water quality can be affected or impacted in a positive way if proper adaptation measures are being implemented. So in this case, just again, an idea based on this question. And then the last question for step 2 is to now think about the broader issues of social justice and environmental and climate justice. And so by looking at some resources online and thinking about how to potentially connect this to my math class, I've come up with this one. So maybe I can share a video or share a local news article about the impacts of stormwater runoff for those local communities in the county, and discuss how maps with data, right, can potentially help communities represent important evidence that they can then use to help raise awareness about how these impacts are affecting them more than others, even though they may have played little to no role in creating the problem. So again, I'm trying to create some hooks in my existing things that I might have to teach about data and maps and representing and interpreting data, right? Okay, and then in step 3, the idea here is to make sure that I've got all these really great ideas, but I need to make sure that I'm actually teaching the things that I need to teach. Because at the end of the day, if the students aren't doing well on their tests, my performance measures might get impacted, right? Or the school's performance measures might get impacted. So how might I make sure that I am addressing some of these learning outcomes, right? So when it comes to cognitive learning outcomes, I might want to make sure that my students are understanding how, for example, as my entry point, phenomena like soil type and water quality can be collected as data. So I'm still touching on the need to understand what data is, how it might be collected and represented and visualized, in this case by a map, right? And in this case, I'm hitting on the third grade math school readiness profile around representing and interpreting data. Next, I might want to think about the socio-emotional learning outcomes, right? Sometimes we tend to get stuck on just the cognitive aspects of the issues, and we're not thinking about the socio-emotional and the behavioral. So what are some of the socio-emotional learning outcomes that I can make sure that I am integrating into my teaching? My response here, for the sake of this example, is that students could potentially be gaining an appreciation and a sense of concern for things like water quality and the impact that a polluting source can have on those nearby water systems and their surrounding human and more than human communities. And then in this case, oops, I forgot my animations are a little off track, but in this case, I'm connecting to the critical thinker profile, right? So I'm making sure that my students have the capacity and the empathy to think and inquire about the world around them and to wonder why things happen the way that they happen, right? So I'm really building the critical thinking connections there. And then in terms of the behavioral learning outcomes here, my response is to say, okay, through this activity or through these lessons, I want to make sure that students are feeling motivated to share what they're learning about stormwater runoff and soil drainage with their friends and with their family members, and to know how and to communicate to others how data can be used to enhance advocacy, action, and environmental justice when it comes to access to clean water, right? And then I've got the learning profiles there. So when we come now to the step around, okay, I've done all this brainstorming, and again, this is a really rapid brainstorm, but I've done all the brainstorm. Now I want to put us all together in one place and start thinking about my lesson plan. So in this case, I've got the issue, I've got how I could potentially connect it to mitigation, how I could potentially connect it to adaptation and resilience, and to environmental justice. I got my cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral outcomes, and I have my learning standards that align. Now, you may, as you're coming up with your lesson plan here, the idea is maybe not necessarily to squeeze it all into one lesson, but if you have the flexibility and even the syllabus or the content to be able to incorporate it across multiple lessons over a semester or even a year, you can, touch on all these different components across a longer time frame, right? And we're not necessarily confining ourselves to doing it in one 45-minute session with your students, right? So this is just to help, again, allow for that brainstorming. And I'm recognizing that I'm close to time, I'm past time now, but I do want to just real quick demonstrate part 2, which is around, as you've got your brainstorming around your lesson plan, how do we make sure that as I'm designing the activities that I am leveraging green learning design elements so that students are not only learning about the issue, but really being brought through a journey and guided through a journey, facilitated through a journey through empowered action. So from research and from the research we've done, as well as research in the broader field, an effective green learning strategy includes 5 important design elements. And those design elements are a cognitive entry point that helps to contextualize the environmental justice issue with an event that the students can actually relate to. And you can use a news story, you can use videos, you can use, local community leaders, writings or videos or talks to help provide that cognitive entry point. The learning experience needs to include an affective dimension where that develops students' empathy towards the problem or the issue. Needs to have an existential component that challenges students' ways of living and being, and in many ways leads them to examine critically their values and their beliefs and their worldviews around what is normal and what isn't normal and what shouldn't be considered normal. And then the last 2 critical design elements are ownership and empowered action that builds students' personal connection and commitment to the issue and fosters their sense of agency and confidence and instills in them the skills to make informed choices. So I'm gonna stop there. I'll just briefly, go through the things here and just briefly show you how in this step you can also kind of chart out and map out how your lesson plan hits on all these 5 critical dimensions. Okay, so that was a really extremely fast overview of the frameworks and tools. And I want to just make sure, Nicole, that we have maybe a few minutes to do breakouts to familiarize with some of these steps, or if we need to adjust. And I see Donald's come on video, so I don't know if Donald, if you have thoughts.
Yeah, Donald, absolutely. We'll defer to you.
Yeah, we do have a few minutes. And even I've already received messages that some of our team want to do a deeper dive with you because we know
Okay.
this was a limited time frame.
Yes.
And so just to let you all know, Christina and I serve on the Board of Education Climate Change Committee. It's a different committee from our internal CCAP committee, but all the same, all the efforts are flowing the same direction. And so I'll definitely be in touch with Christina. We have curriculum writers, we have teachers all interested. They say this was phenomenal and they want to go through it with you, when we have an expanded time frame. But we do have a few minutes now.
Okay.
Thank
right,
you,
great.
Donald, so much. So, Christina is going to share some information about the breakout session with you. And while she's doing that, I am going to put up our last poll. And take it away, Christina.
All right, sure. Thank you so much, Nicole. All right, so in the chat, I'm gonna post the steps that I just went through. And in the breakout rooms, I think it'll be randomly opened. So you'll be placed in random groups of about 3 to 5 folks in each room. And if you can, go through each of these steps. And I would suggest spending, it's over word count. Okay, I will break it down I'll break it down into steps here. But if you could go into the breakout room and go through these steps together and maybe choose an issue and kind of just brainstorm through it and see where you feel like it works and where it feels like you would need a little bit more time, or where you could potentially involve your students even in generating some of the responses to these and really create a more co-created learning experience. So I will place these in successive chats so that you can see them all. I put step 1 in there, and I will put the next couple of steps in there too, so that you can have those as you go into your breakout rooms. And I think Nikki has put the poll there for you all. And while I copy and paste these questions.
And then we're going to open up breakout rooms in a few seconds. And Christina has mentioned, since there's so many of us here, we want to keep breakout rooms to 5 minimum. So what we're going to do is allow you to go in whichever breakout rooms you'd like to go in, because that'll probably be easier. And then just make sure to try to keep it to 5, no more than 6 per breakout room.
Yeah, thanks. Great. Yep, so I just posted all the steps into the chat. So I think that travels with you when you go to a breakout room. So Nikki and team, whenever you're ready to open those breakout rooms.
Yep, give me 1 second. So not all of the rooms are named, but we're going to do, in 30 seconds, we're going to open all the rooms, and you can go into whichever room you like. And we'll make sure that we have put the instructions again in the chat for all of you. So opening breakout rooms now.
I didn't see an indicator for it.
Oh, you do not. Let's see here.
Yes, we don't see it like an indicator.
I do not see it either, yeah.
There is no breakout room.
Okay, I see some of you moving.
I don't see it on my end.
I think
Yes,
if you
ma'am,
click
we
the
don't
three.
Same thing with me. I don't see anything.
We don't see anything.
I'll get you
Same
guys
here.
put in there. I'll get you put in there. I'm not sure
There
why
is no
you
breakout room
can't
yet.
see it.
If you click on the the button that has three dots that says more, you should see a breakout room option, and then you
No,
have
there,
to
we don't see it. It's not an option.
It doesn't show that as an option.
Mhm.
Okay.
We know
So
how
I
to
think
do it. It's not an
phone-
option.
Yeah, which is weird. Yep.
That
I
is
think
very weird.
I think it's the setting.
Some of you should already be in breakout rooms, but obviously if they're in there, they can't hear me. So I'm going through and I'm putting some in. Kiana, are you able to see the breakout rooms as host?
I'm not able
Yeah,
to
I think
see.
so.
Okay, if you don't mind, if you
I
want to
see
help.
them. I see them, Nikki.
All right. If you guys don't mind to help like move it along, let's put 5 or 6 folks in breakout rooms, random selection, you know. Thank you.
Okay, it just now came.
Finally, it showed up for
Yeah,
me.
I went into the option that allows the users to select the breakout room just now.
Okay.
So it may have popped up just now.
Are there specific topics for each breakout room, or it's just anything?
Feel free to walk through those steps. You'll find the questions in the chat. I've done step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4A and 4B are together.
And Christina, for time's sake, how long did you say each
If they want to spend maybe about 3 minutes on each step, it's really short, but I'm just watching the time. I know folks need to be out of here by 8:30, so 3 to 5
Yeah,
minutes
so
per step. Go ahead.
so they'll have to do maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and if they get through the first few steps, we have to bring everyone back just to get things started. But there's a lot of interest in doing this as a full session. So I'll get with you definitely around that. But we just want to have them start talking, but they won't be able to do 3 or 4 minutes for each step because we still have to do the survey and then their attendance form, and that's going to take 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thanks.
I think everyone should be in a breakout room now. A few folks are still moving.
And if the breakouts aren't working, feel free to also work on your own. You've got the questions in the chat, and you can use it as, individual reflection and working through that if you're still stuck in the main room.
I don't have a room yet.
Okay, maybe in the interest of time, if you want to just take a look at the questions and do a self-reflection,
Yeah.
I think it might be difficult just with the number of people in the room. Yeah.
Thanks.
If you could just excuse me, I had a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
So yeah, like I said before, I'm a student and I don't really know if I should join a breakout room or what should I do?
Well, how about, do you have thoughts on how this subject can be incorporated into your curriculum? Like, what would make it interesting for you to learn while at school?
I think I do have a couple thoughts on it.
Yeah, I say go for it. Join the breakout room.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's 8:23. I think we can bring folks back from the breakout rooms.
Great. I just closed the rooms and it looks like they have 57 seconds before they'll be brought back. All right, I see folks are starting to come back. I know that was not enough time at all. You probably just had the chance to say hello and how are you? But I hope that you had a chance to maybe talk a little bit about the steps. And I wish we had a little bit more time. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and reactions to that framework. But I think I need to turn it over either back to Nikki or to Antonio or to Donald. I'll let one of you jump back in to help close out.
Yeah, while people are still coming back in, I'm actually waiting for Donald. I didn't know that Donald went into one of the breakout rooms because we need to
Okay.
spotlight him.
Okay.
Okay. Are we going back?
Yes, I think everybody should be coming.
All right.
There's
Just when
Donald.
we were getting to the good parts.
So sorry it was so short.
Yeah, we need more time for this activity.
Just like,
Hopefully next
just like what
time.
Donna said, this workshop for this particular one for the educators, we need another one that will really dive into the issue because the time was too short for us. Well, it's just like about the plane about to fly.
I
We are
agree with
just on
that.
the runway. They call us that the time is off.
It is.
Yeah, just when you were taking off. But we're gonna keep the enthusiasm and the momentum going forward. I will talk with the science office team. There are several of us, my colleagues in the science office on this call. And as I mentioned, I serve on a board with Christina, and we're in touch as well with Nicole. And so we'll be able to reach out to this community as well as the other communities associated with the content supervisors, and get the word out on a session where we'll be able to focus specifically on Christina's framework.
All right, thank you, Donald. Christina, I'll give you your last word, then we'll go over to Antonio, and I'll close this out as well, and then Donald will get you guys all signed out.
I don't want to keep you all any longer than you need to be here. I know many of you have had already long days, but just know that this framework is intended to be, a practice. It's a brainstorming, and it's intended to help broaden our systems thinking capacity when it comes to not only thinking about environmental justice issues, but then how we can bring those into our teaching. So I hope to be able to see you all again to take a deeper dive into this. And I will turn it back over to y'all for closing out. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I want to thank all of the speakers, our MC, Antonio, thank you so much. I want to thank all of you for sticking it out with us. Thank you to the students who participated. We are looking forward to following up with Donald, getting you the information that you need, and doing some follow-up sessions with you all. We're very excited to be able to do this for you. It has been a pleasure. And on that note, I just want to give one reminder. Well, actually, I don't even need to give that reminder. I'll send all of that information to Donald and he'll send it to you guys. I'll leave it with Antonio and then we'll end it with Donald.
All right, thank you, and thank you again, Nicole, Antonio, Christina, and all of the presenters. I think you've seen in the chat how much enthusiasm there is, as well as from the students and teachers verbally, in addition to the polls. But the community really is surrounding this effort and integrating themselves into this effort. And so we appreciate that. I'm dropping a survey.
You're muted.
Thank you. Okay, I'm dropping the survey in. So did you all not hear, like did I just drop off for the last second or the last minute?
Just the last like 5 seconds.
Oh, okay, got you. All right. So everyone go to that survey That's not the attendance form. You need to do the survey in the next minute or two, and then I'll drop in the attendance form in 2 minutes. And the attendance form should only take you 60 seconds or so to complete. So everyone, please navigate to our survey here, and then I will drop the attendance form in. Don't leave because you haven't done your attendance form. I want to make sure you do the attendance form so that you're compensated for your time this evening. So get the survey now, and in about 30 seconds, I'll drop in the attendance.
I don't see it.
It is in the chat. If you navigate to the chat feature, I'm going to drop it in again. All right. Now I'm dropping in the attendance form in the chat. The session, there'll be a drop-down list when you navigate to that attendance form. You're going to choose climate change and environmental justice training as the title for this professional development. This is a half-day session, so make sure that you're indicating the half-day session. The correct title, which is climate change and environmental justice training. There's also a question on the attendance form. It says, were you on full day leave today? All right, you should answer no to that. Unless you were on a full day sick leave or full day personal leave today, you should answer no. Because if you were on full day leave, then you are not eligible for the stipend. So make sure you answer no to that unless you were on a full day personal or sick leave. And I will drop that in one more time. As you all are completing the attendance form, I just want to say thank you again to Nicole and Antonio for emceeing. I definitely want to talk with you, Antonio, about other opportunities like cross-section of like Hip Hop Caucus and this work as well, so that we get like that arts perspective in this effort also. But I've received comments from 5 p.m. to 8:30 about the different sessions and how great this was. We appreciate you all uplifting the PGCPS community. Of course, we are part of the community, a huge part of the community, but so many different stakeholders came tonight to uplift our PGCPS community. So we thank you.
Donald, I have a
If you're
question.
at, hold on one second. If you're at Owens, or just indicate central office. So if you're at Owens Science Center or Schmidt Center, or just indicate central office on the form. Okay, go ahead. Who was that?
Yes, this is Mr. Sor, Emiliano Sor. Thank you very much for this workshop. Very interesting. Now, question again. What is the name of the workshop, please? Environmental
Climate change and environmental justice training.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. If you have completed the attendance form, then enjoy the rest of your evening. Nicole will be in touch, and then with the resources and links associated with the session, and then I'll follow up within eDoctrina to message everyone.
I got a question. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
With the solutions or ideas we had in the breakout rooms, where do we publish them, or where do we get them? Is there a link to it for all of them?
So, Nicole, I don't, to my knowledge, I don't think that specific information was collected unless that flowed into a form or something along those lines where it was collected. But if not, what I would encourage you is we will set up another session as long as Christina. I don't want to manage Christina's time. As long as Christina is okay with it, we'll set up another session. We will invite everyone from this call to that. As long as we get the approval to set it up, we will invite everyone to it. You'll have an expanded amount of time, and those will be recorded. So you can bring ideas on solutions or what are the environmental justice issues. And the great thing is that within PGCPS, this is built into our climate change action plan. So you're assisting the science office and all, not just the science office, but our priority one committee, and all of the directors and supervisors in terms of pushing the curriculum work forward. So if you have ideas on solutions and environmental justice issues, that flows into the work that's already happening.
We were thinking of just having our students write letters or emails to the Climate Change Action Committee for solving a terrible environmental problem our schools have.
No, that's perfect. Because I've heard the letter to right, like your board member, but I've never heard like writing a letter to the climate change committee. And so that all feedback, that would be great actually, if we get something going. So that you can email me offline as well about that.
Okay.
But yeah, that sounds great.
And
all right,
just to-
thank you all. Yes,
just to
go ahead.
Where
I'm
do we
sorry,
get the
just
link
to
for the
verify-
sign in?
Okay, I just dropped it again. I know it's kind of floating because there's so many people typing in the chat. So I'll just drop it as many times as needed. But I'll drop it in a few more times.
And just to
Got
verify,
it.
it's half day, 3.5 hours.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, good night.
All right, thank
Hey,
you.
Donna,
Yes.
I can't see the survey, but I got the attendance completed. Is that okay?
That is okay. That's okay. If you email me right now, I'll send you the link to the survey.
I put the link for the survey.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Donald, just
Yes.
one observation. In the survey, you didn't
Oh, I
put
see.
elementary school teachers. I only saw 6 to 8 or 9 to 12. I am elementary school, but that's it.
Okay, there need to be an option for elementary.
No, I put older, but that's it. Okay.
No, thank you for that feedback.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Thank you for this. Good job. Thank you again.
Hey, Miss Nicole.
Yeah.
Yeah, why is the survey doesn't go out? Like if you submit, it doesn't go out. It remains submit and it doesn't go out of the.
Wait, are you doing the survey or the attendance form?
Survey.
You may
That
not have
happened
answered
to
a
me too.
question.
Yeah, you have to go back.
Make sure you've answered all of them.
Yeah, maybe you missed one question.
Oh wow. I know
Yeah. It happened to me that I missed one speaker.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
What is the union that we have to click on for the stipend, please?
Are you in PGCEA?
Yes, I am, please.
That'll be your union. If you're in PGCEA, indicate that if you're a teacher.
Thank you.
I have a
You're
general
welcome.
question. I don't know if you're still taking questions. I know we are closing.
Yeah, go ahead. We're still here.
Thank you. Would the slide be shared to us via the email that are coming, or do we have to request any of the slide or any additional information?
No, I will reach out to all of the speakers to get their slides and send everything to Donald in one email so that he can send it to all of you.
Thank you very much.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
so Mr. Donald, you're sending us the slides, especially the last speaker about the parts of the lesson planning.
Yes, I once Nicole collates all and curates all of the resources, Nicole will send it to me and I'll send it out via eDoctrina.
Okay, thank you. I think that's
You're
all.
welcome.
Right.
You're welcome. I see Miss Polly has her hand raised.
Any idea of how long it will take to send the documents?
It'll be next week when you get the documents. Yeah,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Donald, on the form, it says online school. Is that supposed to be the online campus?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
By the way, I forgot the title of the.
Hello.
The
Thank
name
you
of
for sharing.
this BG is Climate Change and Environmental Justice Training.
Yeah,
That's
justice
it.
workshop.
Climate change and environmental justice training. You got it.
Hi, ma'am. Do you have like more PDs in future?
So there, if you're speaking specifically on climate change, there are more in the future. We try to hold them throughout the year. Like I work with Nicole and some others on a pretty large session in November. We'll also have a climate simulation training. I think it's in April. I have to double check with James, but we'll have a climate simulation session coming up as well, which will be on using a specific tool to talk with students about climate change, where they look at climate. It's a climate solution simulation. So we'll definitely have that. And then we are going to start the process of getting approval to have another session with Christina that specifically dives into that last part of how to connect environmental justice topics, as well as content to standards and lesson planning. Because I received countless chats and emails about that. So my team will be following up on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald.
If you have specific ideas for something that you like to see, though, please email me. I'll take that to the priority 1 team.
Is that tool by any chance? Is it the En-ROADS tool?
Yep.
Yeah, En-ROADS, it's cool. I like it.
Yeah. We've been doing like for the last 5 years, about the last 5 years, we've been having a training every year about that En-ROADS tool. All right, I'm gonna drop in one more time or as many times as needed, the attendance form and the attendance link and form. Please make sure you complete that fully. That's how your attendance is tracked, and then the attendance is tied to your pay. And I'm not messing with anybody's money. But you have to do the form.
Donald,
You have to do the form.
For that,
Yes.
for the pay. I put the PGCEA reason. That's fine.
Say that one more time.
In the attendance form, I put PGCEA reason. If that is fine.
Yeah, is that your union, PGCEA?
Yes.
Okay, then that's you got it.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night. You did a great job with this training. Thank you again.
Donna.
Yes.
This is Dr. Tata.
Hey,
in
Dr.
the-
Tata.
in the future presentation, can they dive also into other forms of renewable energy like the hydro, like the thermal, and because I see the Niagara Falls towards Canada as one of a major thing that a big power plant can be tapped from it to promote electricity that is clean energy.
So that is one of
thermal energy is one. Hydro electricity is another one. So apart from wind, that there was not much time today. So we want presenters in the future to really elaborate on all other forms of clean energy.
Hey, what do I put for that question about if you're on leave, if you are on full day leave today?
So were you on full day leave today?
No, okay.
Then you say no, please. Say no. And to that
Thanks.
to that last question, you're welcome. To that last question, That's one of the areas. Nicole is going back to look at all of the data from tonight. And so one of the things Antonio mentioned was in that survey, like there's a lot of people interested in food systems, but it was like 30% or more that were interested. Like it was pretty fair across the board that folks were interested in other areas. So that may be something that Nicole is looking into, like having additional sessions on like jumping into a topic like renewable energy. But in addition to that, we have two more sessions this year with the National Energy Education Development Group. They're going to be on Saturdays. You need to email me because I don't remember the dates off the top of my head. But they're going to be on Saturdays, and you actually get compensated for that as well. We have a partnership with NEED, the National Energy Education Development Group, and they had people actually build um like water turbines and all types of stuff in our last session. And so they're going to be covering, they have lessons that go along with every subtopic of renewable energy. So in addition to what Nicole will be looking at, we also have opportunities coming up with NEED for you to get trained on a Saturday full day.
Hey,
Donald.
Donald, you can count on me on that too, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Donald, thank you for helping putting this workshop together. I am on leave, so I checked it off that I am on leave. I'm here at home, and it's nice seeing you.
Likewise, likewise. We
you take-
appreciate you.
Sure thing. And I'm looking forward to attending more of these workshops.
Yeah, absolutely. And I give this up to Nicole and the team. I coordinated with Nicole, but Nicole has a vast network and pulled folks together from, different industries, different parts of the community. So the credit definitely goes out to, I'm just a piece of the puzzle.
Well, thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Donald.
You're welcome. Thank
Absolutely.
you. We
Good
all,
seeing you, Dario.
yep, help one another. I see Emiliano has a
Yes,
question.
yes,
You've had your hand up.
Nicole, Donald, thank you a lot again for the information and for presenting such a very, very detailed workshop. Question for Donald or Nicole. When I take normally the I-95 towards Baltimore, do I see like an electric or a hydroelectric plant on the left side going towards Baltimore? Because I think that's a hydroelectric. It looks like a fortress with a water capacity or some type of water reservoir. I believe that it's located next to a bridge.
I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to see a picture of it, but I know that there may be a data center up that way. There are a couple of solar farms, but hydroelectric, I think so. And then there's also, we don't have it here, like close to where we are, but there is a push to start doing wind energy here in Maryland as well.
Now, the next question it leads me to this. Will the future reside or will it depend on a hydroelectric energy or in other forms of energy? Will they be replaced with winds, with windmill energy or wind energy? Because I believe that still, some countries, for example, I come from Argentina. We are experiencing a very high electric crisis right now with temperatures. Today was about 102 degrees, which is about 41 degrees Celsius. It's very, very warm, and 15 provinces out of 24 imposed like an electrical crisis or a electric crisis. Now, will the future reside on hydroelectric energy, or will it reside on other forms of energy?
That is a very good question, and I will say that remains to be seen. What I will do, that's because it's such an excellent question. That particular part, hydroelectric energy, is not my niche wheelhouse. So I don't want to share the wrong information. But what I think we can do is make sure we highlight that question during our next session when we talk about energy matters. Yeah,
Nicole, do you think you might be talking about a dam going across the Susquehanna River north of Baltimore?
that's possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it might be. It might be because it's located on I-95, the Interstate 95, the one that goes to, I believe, Towson and Baltimore. I think it's before 695. I think it is before, but I may not. I'm not so sure, but I think that that's an hydroelectric plant, or it's a water reservoir. It acts as a water reservoir because I see like a huge wall with lots of cascade or I guess to budget water or to administer water. But thank you a lot for the presentation.
You know, there's
With
another thing about the wind power turbines. New Jersey, I think there's a guy or a group that was going to be installing those turbines off the shore of New Jersey, but they pulled out of the contract because with Trump, he was cutting back on all kinds of permits and funding for the project. And so instead of continuing with the project, he decided to walk away from it.
Wow.
I don't know what the situation is here in Maryland, but I know it's facing a lot of controversy, especially with the misinformation that Trump was giving when he was running for president, as far as causing cancer and killing birds and disturbing marine life. So I don't know what the situation is with Maryland, but it would be, like you said, it would be worth researching and finding out about it.
Last question for Donald and Nicole. Do we get like a certificate for attending as well the stipend, or we have to check on eDoctrina for the certificate?
Yeah, you do have to check eDoctrina once the attendance and everything is complete. Once that has been updated, then you'll be able to access your certificate in eDoctrina.
Yeah,
Thank you a lot.
I wanted to add that the last speaker, the last question concerning the hydroelectric generation, Maryland, quite a large sites in Maryland that have hydroelectricity being generated currently, but the generation from the coal, like the other speaker was saying, most of our energy is coming from dirty energy, like the coal from West Virginia.
We reduced the coal. We reduced the coal from 62% to 14% currently these days, according to the figures that they presented on the workshop. The coal dependence was reduced, so it's much better now than it was before, right?
Yeah,
It
it's
is
better
much
now.
better
It's
than it
better now
was
than
before.
it was before. Yeah.
Excuse me, may I have email? I don't know if it was in the chat earlier and I missed it, for Donald and Nicole email addresses.
Yeah, Miss Christine, I actually just put my email in the chat, but I'll
Oh.
put it again in there for you.
Okay, I didn't see that, but thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Maybe we need more of this kind of workshop. We have exceeded our hours and people don't want to go.
Yeah, it sounds like y'all are shooting for the full day workshop, which you can't technically get if you work the full day. So we're gonna extend it. It has to be on a Saturday where we
Mhm.
can get the full day credit. But no, I love the I love the enthusiasm and everything. It just says that, we need to organize some more of these sessions. And
Yeah, we
thank
would
you.
love
I
to
want
do
to give a
some.
shout out to Jamie from our sustainability office, because Jamie was answering so many questions in the chat all throughout the call that, right, every time I look, Jamie had an answer right there, or directing some of our teammates to resources that they can use, whether
Mhm.
it's within the school or at home as well. So yeah, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you all. It's a team effort. We're just happy to be here. We're all a part of the same team trying to push the needle forward. Thank you all.
Yes, Jamie, I saw your responses and I responded to one of them. I said, we need to make sure you email me because we need to have you at some of these sessions, especially since it's for the school system.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Sure. I definitely will email you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. Good
Nicole,
night.
for all that you do for us.
Well, Donald knows. I when we actually first talked about this, I did approach him with a full day session, and he didn't think, that we could get the attendance, but apparently we can.
For such a time as now, too.
Right. We need the week, the week version of it, the week long version of it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see, Antonio, you're hanging in there with us. Thank you again so much. I appreciate your hosting us tonight and jumping in there for us. Feel free to hop off or come off mute and just chat with us if you want. But I am going to be in touch with you after this. So, you and I have some things we want to follow up on as well.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. I think it was great. I'm really heartened by the response. Um, like I don't think I mentioned it, but I went to middle school and high school in PG County, so Greenbelt Middle School and Eleanor Roosevelt. Um,
Awesome.
I know the environmental justice and honestly the environment and climate discussions weren't just as robust as they are now. So to see people even just hear it before they got here, but then be so excited to hear about it is real cool. And definitely Donald, definitely want to do more. Like at Hip Hop Caucus is pretty much what we do. Like a bulk of our work is with environmental justice, climate storytelling.
Oh, well, no, definitely let's link up. We actually have a science fair coming up in March, like all of Prince George's area science fair. And so there's some opportunities there to kind of, interact with students. And at one of our secondary science institute, which is a session for science teachers, we have a bunch of different workshop types. But one of them was a teacher that was doing like the intersection of hip hop and science as a session for teachers. But so anyway, like, yeah, let's definitely talk. But appreciate you, the flow and everything with the group, keeping everyone energized and together as well. And applause for Greenbelt and Roosevelt for being part of your journey.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, and we love to promote you. Do you have Twitter or X or social media where we can follow you?
Yeah, mine is Electric Llama. That's my personal one.
Okay.
And then Hip Hop Caucus is just at Hip Hop Caucus.
And hello, you all. I am one of Donald's employees. I have thoroughly enjoyed. I haven't fallen asleep. I'm still here. So this has been very, very enlightening. And I don't think we can show Aaron Brockovich, so we need you all.
There we go. Well, No, let's definitely reach out and start thinking about some additional interactions. Because we're trying to show and I'll be quiet so we can move on. But like with our science fair this year, it's students showcasing their projects, but we also have vendors or community members interacting with them this year because we want them to see like, yes, like you're showcasing your project, but right, like the science extends to like education and of course next steps and maybe where you want to go to university, but also have environmental justice folks right there. Because right, whether you're doing a project in physics or chemistry or environmental or what have you, you need to see the broader scope of why, why you're studying what you're studying. So we have community organizations coming into our science fair this year so that like when the kids are done presenting their projects and they're waiting for like the awards to be announced, all that stuff, they're not just sitting there, they're interacting. So we love to have, and Nicole, the other speakers as well. When you send that information over, we want to invite them also.
Okay, will do. Will do.
Yes, this was great, you all. Absolutely excellent. But you
Thank
see,
you,
we
Miss
have
Teresa.
dedicated employees too, teachers. They're committed to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I want to
All right,
thank
Nicole, anything else from my team
No,
that we
that's all
need
for
for this
me.
evening?
That's all for me. I guess I'll see you tomorrow morning on that call with Eco America.
Yep.
Antonio, do you have any videos that you can share on climate change?
Yeah, there's a bunch. I would say we actually did a series recently on urban greening in LA. Let me find that. We did that last summer. I just shared